notice that this moves up in the
Like to call to order the Avalon City Council meeting of Tuesday, October 22nd. We please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if we could please have a few moments of silence for Mrs. Hardcastle, George Marshall, Dave Black, and Tanya Morse. Please be seated. And when you're ready, the roll call, please, City Clerk.
Councilmember De La Rosa?
Here.
Councilmember Ponce?
Here.
Councilmember Schickling?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lavelle?
Here.
Mayor Marshall?
Here. Announcements.
Let's see. I've received 2 written correspondence today regarding item 6. The email was distributed to City Council and has been filed in the City Clerk's office. I also have some election information. The November election, the vote center will be located at the Catalina Island Conservancy Trailhead Center. It will be open November 2nd through the 4th, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., and November 5th, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Please remember you can turn in your ballot via USPS at any vote center in LA County and at any drop box in LA County. There is a drop box located outside Avalon Library. If you do not register to vote by the October 21st deadline, you may apply for the same day voter registration at your vote center during November 2nd through the 5th.
Okay, department head reports.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council members, and City staff. Jackie Herrera, Public Works Director. Currently, the crew is focused on preventative maintenance projects and storm prep. Recently, we completed much-needed fire suppression repairs to the system at the Green Pier and finished street markings on Lower Terrace, Catalina, and Sumner. We did smoke testing this week in the Whitley and Tremont area to identify if there was an area where stormwater was going into our system, our sewer system. We only found one minor storm pipe in a home, but nothing of significance. We will continue to investigate during the storm season. We're also working on irrigation and landscape at City Hall, JMF, and continuing City Hall renovations. We're coordinating a city cleanup day the first week of November where personnel from Island Company, City, and Conservancy will be washing down city streets and sidewalks. So that's a big collaborative effort, one of its kind, I think, in recent time. Finally, I'm coordinating a pre-storm meeting with external stakeholders where the chief and I will be discussing storm preparedness, such as clearing storm drains, catch basins, installing sandbags, watching the weather reports, staging heavy equipment, and other communication plans during significant storms. That meeting will be here at City Hall Chambers. And that's all I have.
I know there's more, but okay, thank you. There's always more than that.
Trying to be quick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jackie, is there any sort of mitigation that we're doing on the washdown day to make sure that it doesn't go out to the ocean for water testing purposes versus into? Is there anything we can do about that, or?
Well, it's like a normal washdown, actually, that we normally do on Thursday and Friday. The only real difference with this is that we're having additional personnel from Island Company and Conservancy to help out, but all goes into our storm drains. And we're moving it further up than normal. But it's really using salt water, that kind of thing. And we do have the low flows, which are the catch basins right
Capture it?
before.
Okay.
Yeah, to capture anything.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Real, but.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, Orrin Karstaffen, Harbor Master. Since our last report, Tuesday, September 17th, Patrol moored 1,752 boats for a total of 6,388 nights, which shows that we are still quite busy on the weekends. Patrol warned or advised 42 individuals of municipal code violations which included 2 warnings for violations within the marine protected areas. Patrol wrote 4 citations for municipal code violations, also responded to 5 medical calls, and assisted Baywatch 1 time. We assisted the sheriffs 3 times and had 81 public assist. Patrol completed 391 security patrols of the facilities and surrounding waters during this last period. Fall changes in the air, the harbor, which included the removal of the end float, the city end float, and the shoreboat float. And also soon you're going to see the breaking down of the club dinghy dock. We'll leave the 2 main floats in until the 1st of November. And then the east side dinghy dock will be installed on the east side of the pier just as soon as Jay gets the rest of his stuff out.
I see something's happening on your roof.
And a new roof.
Yeah,
So we're
great.
really happy. Thank you for the Public Works and everybody that's, Kevin Schmidt and everybody that's been making sure that's going along smoothly. Also, John Gilbert gets a big shout out for that. Thank you.
Great. Here comes our chief.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, City staff. Scott, welcome. Michael Alegria, Fire Chief. Last Thursday, we held the chamber mixer. Everyone had fun. They gave rides. The guys stepped up. I was out of town at a conference, so the guys handled it all and seemed to go well. I'm working on an application, so the city will be giving out more info soon to try and become a FireWise community to help with all the insurance stuff. But we're working on an application for that. Last week and this week, we have our EMT research with the county lifeguards. They come over, and we do 2 days of hands-on skills testing. And last week, we did have a rope rescue, so that was 2 we had this year. This one, they actually had to set up a line up at Burrito and rappel down and get the guy and come back up. The last one, the other one we had this summer, he was low enough that we were able to use the ladder truck.
On that same hill, that same,
Same hill.
yeah. Any questions of our chief?
Is there a sign we could put on that fence? Because it seems to be repeating.
They're all coming from the top.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good evening, council, city staff. Matthew King, the sheriff's captain. Since our last meeting, we had 182 calls. Of those, 65 were calls for service from the public. 117 were observations made by the deputies. During those calls, we made 15 traffic stops. 5 citations were written. We made 3 arrests, 2 for drunk in public, 1 for misdemeanor domestic violence. We're currently working with a diversion program in Long Beach, so anytime we come in contact with a juvenile under the age of 18 that has a crime that's above the level of a traffic citation, they're now referred to diversion, which is a great program. Basically, rather than book them into the station for time, they go into the program if they're willing to do it, and then if they complete the program, then the violation is actually expunged from their record. If they don't complete the program, then we refer it back to the DA's office. It's a fantastic program. It works a lot better than giving them a citation and going to court and then nothing happens. So I really, big fan of it myself.
Has there been any discussion about the shortstop program with the school?
Last year, they thought they were going to do it, and they ended up not going through with it. We haven't heard this year yet, but I'm really hoping that it comes back.
Right.
But this the diversion program is I don't know exactly yet how it's going to turn out, but I think it's actually a better program. It's very in-depth, and they have to complete it in order to avoid having other issues. And even when it's not necessarily the level of a misdemeanor or a felony, we can still refer them, and they can accept them to the program. So it's really nice.
Any questions?
With that program, is that something that our kids would have to go do over town?
Yeah, actually, they're going to come over here for part of it, and then they're going to go back and forth. It's kind of a hybrid program. Yeah, that was one of my questions for them, and they said, yeah, they'll make arrangements to come over. It may not be here every month, but they're going to try to be here as much as they can.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Dan's coming out? Or are we going to hear enough from him later?
We're not going to hear a whole lot, but he is coming out later.
Okay.
Good evening, Council. Matt Baker, Finance Director. I think since the last meeting, I had auditors on site, so I'm focused on preparing the audited financials for the last fiscal year that ended June 30th. Other than that, from a revenue update, right now, TOT for hotels for the month of August, we're up 5%, but a couple big caveats on that. One, there's a few hotels that are outstanding, and two, last year we had the impacts from the hurricane, which impacts that number. So I think when it all washes out, it'll probably be closer to 15 to 20% up, which is more or less in line with what a lot of the other revenues looked like for August comparing to August of last year. So the impact of that hurricane looks to be about a 20% difference. So obviously there are other factors this year that would have impacted visitor levels as well. But other than that, we should be on track with where we had budgeted revenues. And at the next meeting, I'll give a more in-depth number, hopefully with all those late payments resolved. So,
Great, thank you. Assistant City Manager? Oh, I'm sorry, Dave. Oh, how could I forget?
Good evening, Council, Madam Mayor. This last Friday, we had our annual Fall Festival. One of the larger ones since we've come back from COVID. We had 32 booths at this one. It was great. And we also had the Catalina duo of Cindy May and playing on stage, as well as we had Wildflower Arts Collaborative. They're the fire dancers that we brought over. And also our local dance tech team performed on stage. So we had plenty of entertainment to go with all the fun and games and carnival games that were going on around town. We also had another major event, our Prime Timer Bad to the Bone event. And at this event, we had about 15 of our Prime Timers come. We had a Halloween costume contest, and Mary Schickling and Company won it as the Killer Bees. So, big shout
Except
out.
you guys were so young, you didn't know what the heck we were.
Most of them did.
Oh, look, they're the bumblebees. We had
we just thought we
guns and
got to
everything.
get better at getting rid of the bees in town because they've now mutated to this size. And then also with it, we had crafts of where we painted skulls, and we had a dinner and a movie. And the dinner was provided by Avalon Smokehouse. And we had ribs, and the movie was Young Frankenstein, and everybody seemed to enjoy. The young kids in there didn't know that one either. Coming up, though, we have our Halloween parade on Halloween, October 31st, Thursday. There's a 4:30 p.m. lineup at Kanabe Park, with the parade starting at 5. And then we will have our festivities, the Nightmare on Front Street, which will start from 5:30 to 8. We will have craft booths there. We'll have palm readers, tarot card readers. We have a laser tag, zombie laser tag event going on, as well as a movie on the beach, Transylvania Hotel. Is there any questions?
Great, good job, though.
Did you say zombie laser tag?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So what is that? Does it cost, or do you just sign up for it?
You're
Or
just going to sign up, and you and
So-
your friends can go in and
First
play some
come,
laser
first
tag.
serve?
Yes.
That sounds
Yeah,
fun.
we'll have that on
That's
the
new.
beach.
I
Yeah,
like
it'll be
that.
fun.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Jocelyn Francis, Assistant City Manager. So tonight, I want to remind everybody that this Saturday, October 26th, from 9 a.m. to noon, here at City Hall, we'll have our Household Hazardous Waste event. We'll be collecting e-waste, even bulky items such as furniture, appliances. So bring any used paint cans, cleaning products, batteries, furniture, etc. We'll be accepting it here again, 9 a.m. to noon here on City Hall campus on Saturday. Last week I was at Cal Cities, so thank you all. It was a great learning experience. I learned a lot of best management practices, everything from electrification of cities, fire insurance, e-bikes, code enforcement, financial trends, the gamut. So Thank you all. And then tonight, I want to introduce everybody here in our community to the City of Avalon's first full-time information technology manager, Michael Daly. Michael has over 25 years of experience with network infrastructure, project management, IT help desk support, and vast experience with cloud-based solutions. He has his master's from Marquette University, as most recently the Director of Information Technology for Catholic Charities of Los Angeles, supporting nearly 500 end users. Please join me in welcoming Michael to the city team.
Hey, Michael. No, I'm just going to say I'm going to pass him my password. So, and every 2 months or whatever, he's going to help me switch it. So I appreciate that.
It's going to get worse.
Thank you, Michael.
Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
No.
Hey, Jocelyn, I just had a quick question on the e-waste thing. Batteries, does that include like portable like leaf blowers, those batteries and drills and all that stuff?
Yes.
Woohoo.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. I forgot about Kelly. Sorry, Kelly.
Good evening, Council. Kelly Rebuffo, Contract Planner. Just wanted to let everyone know that we are having our Planning Commission meeting tomorrow night. Same time, same location. We have one item on the agenda tomorrow night. That's a site plan review and a coastal development permit for a new 2-story accessory structure at 371 West Whitley, so the Denny property. And then we will also have I think, more expanded version of the CIP presentations as well for anyone interested in more information. And that's all I have. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you. City Manager?
Thank you. Well, I asked everybody to be brief because you have such a full agenda, so I'm going to be real brief. Everybody else already covered anything that I would hit, so I have nothing else to report.
Okay, Council.
I have nothing.
No, sorry. I knew that. That's why I didn't bother. No, he'll be talking later, I'm sure. Okay.
I'm going to go first.
Okay.
We've been given a timeline of 3 minutes, so I'm going fast. I was able to attend my 50th high school reunion last weekend, which was amazing. Kind of surprised to see some of us still walking around, but it was a great event. And then continued the week in Long Beach for the Cal Cities annual conference. It's always a great event for us to attend to get best practices of what's going on around in the state. Attended 2 sessions on conducting city council meetings or meetings in general, and e-bikes, which is one of my favorites, and also fire. And it was a great event. So, and happy to have my fellow council people attend the LGBTQ caucus meeting to show support for the community. So, thank you.
I can go next. The week has arrived, so I know we've been doing a lot of planning for the Residents Resource Fair. So it is this week, Thursday, October 24th. It is 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the St. Catherine of Alexandria Church. And then there will be food. That's from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. But we do have about 20 plus agencies coming, so please take advantage of them coming here for us. And then also we do have another event that same day that is part of the resource fair, but we will be having it in the chambers due to just making sure residents have more privacy. And that will be the Western State College of Law for Know Your Immigration Rights Workshop. And that will be also along with Mr. Hall. He'll be helping us do some translation for our residents. And then I also did Cal Cities. Attended all sorts of things. It was a little overwhelming at first, but I did have an application that took the notes for me and organized them, so that was great. And then I did also want to say thank you to all city staff that was there, Scott, and of course, just made me so proud to be sitting on the dais with you all. and continue to do the work that now we see we have to keep moving forward with. And then one of the big things that stood out to me for the sessions was the disaster preparedness. And the cool part was that I took a lot of notes, but that same night when we arrived, we had our Fall Fest, and the state had a booth. And lo and behold, they had a disaster guide. So I was like, huh, that must have been meant to be. So I checked it out, and I loved how they had public entities that our residents should have information for, checklists for things they should also have. They have a space for emergency contacts, and I do think that we should all have one of these, but I would also like to request that we make our own for our residents. And I did also have this conversation with Jocelyn and Dave about just making sure what role every person has, even if it is small or big, but even including ourselves. So that's something I think we should focus on sooner rather than later. Thank you, guys.
So speaking of disaster preparedness, while we were at the conference, it was the great shakeout, so my phone was from Edison, it was like, are you doing this? Are you going to drop cover and hold on? And one of my coworkers was like, drop cover and roll, right? And I go, no, that's fire. No, just hold on.
We're a little rusty.
Yeah, but so, we'll probably do drills. We've had citywide drills in the past, and they've worked out very well, very interesting, with unified command and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, the conference was fabulous. Enjoyed the heck out of it. I attended the one, are we ready for electrification? The whole state, and it's like the answer is pretty much no. But we're working on it. I know Edison is working really hard on it. Lisa and I were talking, and we're talking about, trying to figure out how to get charging in curbs and all this kind of stuff. And the city of Calistoga, somebody from the city of Calistoga brought up, they have a hydrogen generator that produces battery storage, and it sounded really cool. But then after talking a little while longer, it's super expensive. So never mind. So anyway, we're not ready for that. And I went to the other fire thing. The fire thing is big on my mind, and they did mention the whole Firewise cities and all that kind of stuff to help get your areas not designated as high fire. But according to the fire chief that was speaking at that seminar, he's like, once you're designated high fire, good luck getting out of it. So, but it's still worth trying, and Laura is trying to mitigate all of those reasons and make communities able to stand on their own. But that's a couple years down the line. And kudos to Dave. It was really fun at the Halloween thing, the prime timers and stuff like that, and put the candle back. It was pretty fun. I think that's it.
Setting the timer for 3 minutes. So I had the opportunity to attend the legislative update with Congressman Garcia, with the mayor and city staff, with the city manager and Mary, and we had a nice time with them, and we're recognized as well for things we are and aren't getting. So that was kind of nice to be mentioned in the room of everyone else that he's covering. Attended in the span of the last 3 weeks 4 different conferences, and AI was at the top of the list for every single one of them. And so with regard to city and city staff, there was an interesting program that could be utilized to help code enforcement have more eyes and ears around to be able to track things like cleanup and waste dumping and things like that, and felt it was worth us actually looking into. So I'll be sharing some info with that at a future date. Wanted to also, just after the discussions with Jocelyn at that conference, revisit where we are with the sea level rise program, and having visited New Orleans and getting to see the multiple curb levels they have in New Orleans currently. There's actually 3 of them for most locations throughout the city. And so knowing that that is something that will eventually potentially need to be done here is interesting to see how that all works. And
that's a lot of trip and falls.
It's a lot of trip. It scared the crap out of me. Seriously, so many trip and fall hazards. I was like, okay, just stay on this part of the sidewalk. You're fine. After a snafu with some of the hotels, it reminded me, especially with regard to communication within cities, how important communication and avoiding confusion is. And so would love to make that kind of a goal that we set for this year, to be able to manage how we communicate at all levels. And we've already started to have discussions about this, so I know it's kind of in progress right now. But to make it easier for people, I know we make it very easy already, but to make it even easier for people to access information that is clear and not in government speak, that is very easy to digest and understand. And then finally, just two things. One, please make sure that you've received your election information. If you haven't yet, please check with the city clerk's office to do so. It is imperative that you get out and you vote. Please do not sit this election out. And finally, go Dodgers. Thank you. 38 seconds to spare.
Oh, that was pretty good. So you want to cede your 38 seconds to give them to me?
Yeah, sure, you
No,
can have
okay.
it. But use them wisely.
Okay. I attended a lot of what they did. Any information that I got, I've relayed it to the department heads or the city manager. And so anyway, that's all good. And a lot of us were jointly in meetings, so we kind of heard the same thing. And I know we got this letter from Mr., and that's been passed on to, who did you pass it on to?
To Devin.
To Devin, so if, I don't know if everybody got one, to do with, have you seen this?
Yes, it's
Okay.
not our property, but we'll forward on to the
Right,
property owner.
yeah, and I think we need to respond to this gentleman just to let him know it's not ours.
We will.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, that's all I have. Okay, oral communications. This is an opportunity for people to speak on items that are not on the agenda. You will be limited to 2 minutes, and no action will be taken.
Good evening to you. Paul Birchall, Avalon Library. Been a while since I've been here. Mr. Baker's grown a mustache in that time. Just want to say, as far as the election is concerned, we have a vote by mail box in the front of the library. It's being emptied by representatives of the Register Recorder's Office once a week. And on election day, I believe the Sheriff's Department come in and unlock it, and they helicopter about the ballots out. So it's available to you. Also, I want to call attention, our very generous and kind friends of Avalon Library have a new sort of book box outside the library. It allows us to have twice as many used books. So that's a very nice thing. We're keeping that full. I'm able to double stack. Really nice to have more books available to purchase that benefit our friends of the library. Please come to the library tomorrow at 4 o'clock. We're going to have an art class taught by Claudia Hindu. She's awesome. She usually does fashion design, and she's going to teach art techniques like shading, coloring, dimensionality, stuff like that. Also tomorrow we're going to have our history chat with Chuck Liddell at 2 o'clock. He's going to talk about the history of the Catalina Film Festival, which he was instrumental in starting. That's going to be fun. Coming up in November, I've got a special Johnny Cash tribute concert. That's going to be coming up November 14th. And then in December, I'm going to have an Asian American artist by the name of Claudia Lamb. She's going to come out and teach origami, plus our usual crafts Tuesdays and Fridays, and our story time Saturday morning at 11, toddler playtime Fridays at 11. And I think I'm going to just yield back the last 10 seconds of
Thank you. Nice to see you, Paul.
It's freezing in here, so I'm sorry if I'm a little jittery. Hi, Mayor, Council, City staff. I'm Cindy Cassidy. I'm here to talk about the newly painted parking restrictions on Lower Terrace Road. First, let me start by saying that we are 100% in favor of making the travel for emergency vehicles easily and accessible. We have no issues with the specific markings placed on the roads or the parking restrictions that are there. We've had several causes of emergency, unfortunately, along Lower Terrace Road the last couple of years, and we appreciate the fire department ensuring quick and safe access to our residents in the time of need. What I'd like to stand before you and ask is that over the next 2 months or so, I'm hoping that you'll please put an item on the agenda to restrict parking on Lower Terrace Road to residents. Several years ago, the plea of the residents on Descanso Street to have their parking limited to residents overnight, the council, I was on the council at the time, we agreed to do that so that those residents along Descanso would have overnight parking near their homes. So at the time, though, that we made that, my request as a council member was to go ahead and approve that at the time, but to bring back a discussion about parking and transportation in general. Unfortunately, that time never came, which means that it's never been discussed again. So here we are years later, and with that conversation not happening, we now have what is an impact to Lower Terrace Road with parking. So with the new painting that's happened, we have lost 1 full-size parking spot and 6 golf cart parking spots. Now there is only 1 full-size parking spot and 7 golf cart spots available from Lower Terrace, from the Riviera building to the Bowl, which is an impact to the residents. Most of us year-round residents live there along that section. So we're not opposed to the new restrictions. We think they're great, but we'd like to keep overnight parking for people who are going over town to other areas of town. So, I'm sorry. Can I please keep going? I have
Well, a
another
couple
minute.
seconds. It sounds like you're almost finished.
We'd like to have that conversation at a council to restrict parking to overnight for Lower Terrace guests. Another solution that I had for you as a council to consider is open up parking from the mall out to Lover's Cove. That is a much more accessible place for people to park. It's safer, lots of room to move around for people to park overnight. Then the other thing is Chief Alegria talked about one of the reasons why we needed the parking restrictions on Lower Terrace, because that section of the road near the Bowl is significantly deteriorated. So
Right.
I assume, and I know our current city staff has probably already reached out to the Island Company, but I just want to be assured that conversations are happening ahead of an emergency of that hillside falling down to shore that up. And lastly, since I'm here, good job for you guys adding item number 10 to your agenda. Fully support you. I'm going to be home with a nice glass of wine watching you tonight, but thank you for looking out for our residents in making sure that they have affordable and dignified housing in town. So I support you on that, and thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Now, I'm sorry.
Sorry about that. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight to address the skate park and the proposed multi-use facility. Recently, I visited the skate park and documented its current condition through photos and videos. I believe the estimated $15,000 for repair is excessive. There is minimal damage that can be fixed for much less. Instead of removing the skate park, we should be preserving it as one of the last recreational spaces for our kids. We hear complaints nearly every city council meeting about kids riding their electric bikes too fast through town. But instead of creating a space where they can ride safely, the city is considering dedicating a space for an impound yard to store these bikes where they're confiscated. It's not fair to allocate space for an impound yard while failing to give these kids a place to ride. We should be giving our youth more opportunities, not taking away by shutting down the skate park. The multi-use facility proposed would cost at least $17,000, and in just 2 years, the land would revert back to the Catalina Island Company. Is it really worth spending that much money on something temporary? And are the proposed activities like futsal and archery truly reflective of the community's interests? Why not let the residents decide what sports or activities they want at the facility? Moreover, we should focus on improving the recreational facilities we already have. Just the other night, I saw kids playing at the basketball court with a lighted basketball because it's too dark for them to play once the sun goes down, as there's no lights there. These are simple, fixable things that could have a huge impact. In conclusion, I urge you to reconsider removing the skate park. Let's repair it at a much lower cost and keep it a vital space for our youth. Instead of building something new that will disappear in 2 years, we should be enhancing our current facilities and giving our youth the recreational opportunities they need to grow. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hello, Jessica Romero, 216 Clarissa. Hello, Council. Hello, Mayor. Hello, community members. I'm here and I stand with Daniel Feltz on the topic of the skate park 100%. I literally was at the skate park when I heard about this. I took my kids home and I jam down here as soon as possible. As a mother of 3, my family spends a significant amount of time at the skate park. We spend, honestly, about an hour and a half to 2 hours daily. I have a 3-year-old, and he's amazing. He catches so much air on his scooter on the ramps. I do agree that the community, if no one else, myself, I volunteer. I have been out there with my drill and my screws, drilling stuff down so it's safer for my child. But it would be detrimental to my children's future to remove the skate park and replace it with, I'm in favor of archery and any other things regarding our children, such as like batting cages, maybe bring back a dirt bike track. Those are all good things, but not at the disposal of the current skate park. So I fully volunteer to be anywhere you guys need me for that. If you need me to go door to door and get a survey of the community members, I volunteer for that. I want to fight for my son's future at the skate park. So thank you, guys.
Thank you for your comments. Okay. We have a presentation.
Put the 2 minutes back.
Good evening, Bob Greenlaw. Matt, it's coming up. Okay, we got a PowerPoint. So this evening I'm here to give a quick update on the Elbow project. I could probably speak about this for a few hours since we've been out there, but city manager is not going to allow me to do that. It's going to be about 15 minutes here. That's all the time I've got. So I will speak fast. There'll be a lot of stuff coming at you. Realize that we'll have other meetings here in the future to discuss this, but we wanted just to assure the council and the community that we're going to do something better than it's out there. By this time we get to the next visitor season, so we got to talk right now what our plans are, and at least not have stanchions out there what we have out there right now. Okay, and it all depends on our plans and our money that's available. So, what is the Elbow? So the Elbow is an area where the intersection of Pebbly Beach Road and Crescent comes together in a sharp angle, so like an elbow. It is a place where all modes of travel come together to enter our community. So that's, besides our residents, that's the first place a visitor comes to see as they enter from the mall. So what's the problem that is being addressed with the current effort that we're doing? So due to the lack of improvements, the area often experiences chaos when all the conflicting traffic modes come together. So the traffic modes, consider the vehicular ones that are commercial trucks, the transit, taxi, tour vehicles, private vehicles, and they're all different sizes and shapes. And that becomes a conflict, especially in the middle of the day. Larger vehicles tend to go there early in the morning, and it's not as congested. So that still works, and we take advantage of that. And then we have the pedestrian bike. So those are the active transportation modes that we address in our active transportation plan. And so how's the city approaching these possible solutions? So field observations. So for the past 2 years, I've been out there, and I've also brought other city staff, city manager out, and we've looked at all the types of movements, modes of travel, and evaluated areas where we could systematically make all those modes operate in a system and operate in kind of reacquired real estate as we move things around and create safe spaces. That's really what a complete street project does. We look for areas of opportunity and constraints where we could grab some of that additional real estate that may be excessive, maybe some excessive paving, and we try to repurpose that and make it so that we can create new spaces and new systems for that all to operate in a safe mode of travel. And an efficient mode too, no mode takes precedent or gets, doesn't get disadvantaged by the other modes being there. We try to find successful solutions. And then, so we moved into a proof of concept by demonstration. So that's the best way, because we could talk a lot about this, but until we go out there and prove it to everybody, they're going to say, what about this? What about? So there's a lot of what ifs. So why don't we just go out there and prove it? And that's what you saw us do. We went out there for about a $5,000 investment and put up the stanchions, put up a widened sidewalk. But still, we knew there were some constraints that couldn't be demonstrated to 100% through that demonstration, and we'll talk about those here in just a minute. And then we received feedback, and then we implemented that feedback feedback and came into a direction for design. So these are some of the things we saw before the demo. And these were taken kind of early morning, so they're maybe not as bad as some of the summer. This is some of the photos I had, but you know, some of the chaos that happens out there when we have a cruise ship day. We have folks that are on this westerly sidewalk here that go in packs of 5 wide, you know, and so they go beyond the extent of the sidewalk, and then they come to that corner. We have large vehicles wanting to come around that corner. Then we have also the pedestrians that are crossing the street. And then you see up here in the second photograph to the right, we've got different modes of travel. We've got the bike that's operating in a shared condition. That's called, you know, and what we do is we put arrows in the road with a bike symbol, and it's called a sharrow. And so that works in this community instead of having just bike lanes because of our speed limit being 15 miles an hour. So we grab that opportunity to have the bikes right in that lane in that. And also what that does in this type of area, it slows the other vehicular traffic through there because we're all a mixed use. And you see that narrow sidewalk that was one of the goals, to widen that sidewalk, and we tried it with 2 feet wide, 2 feet wider. And then we noticed that, you know, the crossing, especially as we have acquired the Pancake Cottage has elevated business, the golf cart rental, they've merged together and put 2 of the businesses right there, and then also the Trailhead converting over and having all their tours out of that. All of that confluence of operations started creating some of these problems. So we realized that, so we had to start separating that up and try to put solutions to that. And you also can see where we're walking in the street behind where the parking did exist before. That's really the path of travel they wanted to go from down Pebbly Beach Road in front of the trailhead on the road. They didn't want to go back on the sidewalk. They wanted to go in that arc. So we considered that excess paving in that whole area, and we want to make an opportunity for that extra real estate there. So you can see the mixed use of traffic on the picture on the left. You know, we have pickup trucks, full-size pickup trucks, and we had what was our transit vehicle, but we have buses in our tour buses that are just as large as that. And then the right side was just showing some of the confusion that happens when we had the circle out there. We have that golf cart in the middle of the picture going contraflow, and then, you know, we have a motorcycle going, you know, in the direction of travel. So, you know, those things can be corrected by roadway markings, but still, considering what's coming out of that area, we get people that are renting a golf cart, probably some of them been the first time they've been in it, the first minute that they're in it, and same thing with bikes. You know, they're coming out of the bike rentals, maybe the first time they've been on a bike for a while, and so, you know, it leads to unsafe conditions, and we need to give them a safe space to operate and make it clear to them how to operate. Okay, so we considered the field operations those prior 2 years, you know, doing this demo. We listened to the wants and needs of the stakeholders. We went out there with city staff and dug into, you know, all the fronting businesses there, besides, you know, as we have been to council before, listening to everybody and what we could do as we rolled out this demonstration. And then we applied the complete streets concepts, and then we had the proof of concept demo was implemented, and this is what it looked like. So we put the stanchions up. This was, you know, between plywood there on the picture on the right and the stanchions, about $5,000 of investment. I think it was very successful, that amount of investment to show us really proof of concept. You can see that, see it going in, the sidewalk going in on that first picture on the left there. So you see and then you see the completed, finished 2 foot wide, and that was just to be able to get 26 foot wide in the roadway with the existing wall there at the Serpentine wall. And so that's all we could push it, but there may be an additional space, and we'll see that in some further graphics here, that maybe we could go 3 feet there, because it looked like it operated well, but it could have another foot. So we'll look at those. Here was a picture of the fire truck proof of concept coming out of that very tight, and we call it the throat of the intersection of Crescent, at the intersection of Crescent and Pebbly Beach Road. And so this was really proof of concept whether they could stage there. We'd be looking for areas for the ambulance fire truck to stage so that the traffic could still go through. But what we found out and what we heard a lot about was that circle there. And we do have our lift station down below that. We think that we can gather a little 3 or 4 feet additional space in the width of that, and that's going to help a bunch moving traffic through there. So we took that note from all of the users in that area. You can see the completed sidewalk with the stanchions there on that westerly side, and you also can see where we did what we call a half a scramble, or that cone-shaped crosswalk. And what we were trying to do there was to make sure that everybody that came up to there knew that they could walk diagonally across that crosswalk. We gave them the guidance, and so that helps them make that decision quicker and get across quicker so we can process the other modes of travel. But it's also safer because everybody knows if I operate in there, that's where they should be. Because before, what we would do, they would do the same thing, but they would walk outside the crosswalk, and so now our expectations is this is where you operate, okay? So it seems to be working fairly well. And then we have the picture of the intersection with the 2 crosswalks. And, those are roughed in. They're not the exact what they would be, but we did see a lot of travel down that mid-block crosswalk that wanted to get to the Pancake Cottage, or get to the golf cart rentals, or get to the other side of the street. And what we heard from the businesses there is that's what was needed. They needed to, and that we had actually came to council and asked for an additional $25,000 to open that up, but we had made some other tweaks that took care of that, at least for this season. So that directed most of that traffic across the road there. And fix that problem that we were hearing, because there was too many folks going down on the trailhead and splitting. So they wanted to make sure that if you came down the pedestrian mall from the mole, that you did focus on getting across that mid-block crosswalk. Okay, so, and this was the feedback that we received. I say, not that we were surprised, but it was nice to hear that it was very positive feedback from the stakeholders out there once everybody was about a month into it. That there was very positive feedback. As we heard the initial things from that we needed to fix. We tweaked those things, and we were out there constantly watching it. So they felt that it seemed like the business felt like they were participatory in this, and we were reacting within a day to what their requests were to correct things. And so I think that helped them become part of the team, that we were actually trying to achieve something good for the community together. So, and then the negative feedback we received, the nature of the implementation, the traffic control measures of the stanchions were not preferred. So that's what we're addressing here, and say, what are we going to do for the next season? Because I think we've proved that the concept worked, but we can't live another season. I mean, I was out there almost daily trying to fix those from people either knocking them down or, they were not intended to be durable. They were intended just to show that the spaces worked. Too many crosswalk locations on Pebbly Beach Road, so that is not was not intended for the Clarissa intersection or the mid-block. It was really as we looked further down the road, and we have 4 crossings, and I have a graphic that I'll show you in just a minute. Difficult parking and turnaround for the areas of the shuttle at the trailhead, and just even moving vehicles through that tight, and that's what I said I would address, that 4 additional feet at the throat of that intersection. And then additionally, Conrado with the golf cart rentals, he is working with the Island Company to take the nose off that island there by Machine Gun Park, where our electric meter is, so that we can open up that 2-way traffic for the ingress and egress for the golf cart rentals, so that we can get two full lanes through there, okay, so that we can narrow that up just slightly. And he was working with them to be able to get permission to do it, and he was going to fund that. And then there was also, we heard the need for replacing the handicap parking space during the demo. Yes, we'll look for that as we do our final improvements. And now we're working to come up with how we could roll out a phased approach on the project. Here's one of the things that we're doing in design. I just want to show you some of the tricks we're doing. So we have software, or our consultant, our traffic consultant has software. So here's a sample of one of the design vehicles. You can imagine, you can see that the length of the bus after the rear axle here does not make this turning radius too good for this vehicle, okay? So this is one of the ones that we use for proof of concept, and we have about 6 of them that we modeled. And so what you see in that top picture there is if I was on Clarissa and making a right-hand turn, that gray area there is the movements where the wheels need to occupy the road, and you can see it going into the other lane. So what's that tell us is that we need to move the serpentine wall wider, because I only have it at 26 feet. I knew that going into this, that there was very sharp turning radius, so we need to move that serpentine wall toward the water, and I'll tell you how we're going to do that. And then we'll also move that stop bar back for vehicles queuing up. So all that could happen if it was midday, because that's a condition we need this bus to travel through. If it was a large crane or something going through, we're going to do it at 6 o'clock in the morning. If we're going out to the wharf and we're going to have a float taken out, we're going to do that at 6 o'clock in the morning. But this vehicle travels midday, so we need to be able to do that. Okay, here's some of the graphics. And remember, these are draft, okay? And will they change? Absolutely, they'll change. But we needed to put something on paper with some of our notes here. So if you look in the top left-hand corner there, improved pedestrian crossing, we already showed that sample of that. You can see where the serpentine wall is right there at I'll see if I can get the cursor up there. Right in that area right there. So that's where we need to have the wall go straighter, okay? Okay, here's a good graphic of it. So you see where that area, where that red hatched area is? We need to line that up so we can get that stop bar over more, and so we can get that turning radius. That is a critical point of this all working, this whole system working. Now, when we do that, you go, okay, well, now we're taking walkway. If you look at right adjacent to that walkway, that's where the kayaks are. There is probably an additional 10 feet of space. It's like a little triangle there. It needs to happen anyway, because that's a pinch point on our walkway, okay? And we can repurpose an area for the kayak somewhere else. But that allows us to get that pinch point, and that allows us to get the pinch point in the road, allows us to get maybe another foot of the sidewalk on the other side, and allows us to get a wider walkway here, and we just repurpose that little bit of beach there, okay, to get all of that. And so that makes all those modes of traffic work.
But let me just ask a quick, are you widening where it actually says stop?
Yes, we are, but we're not giving more roadway. We're taking that roadway back from the other side, because I was showing you there that our turning radius, that needed to be in this other opposing lane, okay? So we're not widening the street, really. We're just allowing that turn to happen, and we need to have it happen on that one side. And we can get in those additional details as we move further into design. I don't want to get hung up on that, but
okay.
Let's see, let's go back to this picture here. How am I doing, Chief?
Good.
You're getting there. Good job, Bob.
Okay. You can see that highest and best use of real estate. We've opened up some of that area where the palapas are, if you're looking toward the middle of the page there. Taking that out, put some additional seat walls, it'll open up to the intersection. So we're not saying to remove all of that, we're just saying this is what it looks like when you do, and then you've got to ask yourself, what are we going to do with that space? And is that more valuable than the way it's laid out right now? And especially when you start pinching people coming through there, it's like, well, now we have these plazas, and we can move people through, and then soon when we get South Beach done, There's going to be a beach with the ramp still right down there, and you're going to have great access down to South Beach. And so South Beach is going to probably be even more higher used than it is right now, because it's going to be a beach like Middle Beach, and you'll have that kayak recreational ramp. So there's a lot of good things that can happen right there. And so how to repurpose that. Now notice in front of the trailhead over here in the lower spot right below that, now that's all become a plaza too. That's not a drive space. And so all those places that we need people to hang out, we're waiting for maybe the Pancake Cottage or maybe a tour or just hanging out, now we've created these spaces. So really what we've done is kind of bring whatever Front Street is and brought it further toward Pebble Beach Road. And so we've made more space for people that are coming, okay? And then you can see we widened the sidewalk. So there's a lot here, and we'll have this up on our website so that you can see it, so everybody can see it, so I don't want to take too much time on it today. Okay, and so here's some more graphics. You can see it open up in the plaza area there. Like I said, these are draft. This gives, a real good look at what that intersection possibly could look like, but we need to recognize that we want a lot of pedestrian space. So we got seat walls in there, but we want to make sure that people can walk, okay, during the busiest times. Okay, some more graphics. And so these are the kind of things that we can build as far as putting graphics together, because it comes out of the software, the landscape architect. We got a really good team together on this, and they can, if you ask for what that would look like, we can generate these graphics. And so, and think of, we do need what we learned, we do need to have some type of barricades, okay? Whatever those barricades, whether it's walls, architectural fences, very thin landscaping that's vertical, all of those things need to be on those edges. I think we proved that during our proof of concept. Okay, so just to let you know, and we had reported before, but in August of 24, we had put in an ATP for Cycle 7. So we did put a grant application. That's the same thing that we had done for out here for Five Corners. But that's like 2027 is actually the cycle that funds. So it's out there, but if we may need to build something sooner than that as a phase, okay? So that we're replacing those stanchions. So that's really what, our report is about. And so we need to develop a cost analysis for a phase, prioritize forget that, plan. That's what happens when I talk fast. So, and then find the priorities. That's what we need to come back to council and the community. We need to talk about those things, okay? So that I just wanted to be able to report what was happening so you know that you're not going to get the same, we're not interested in the same thing out there. We're trying to move forward with it. And then also, like we said, we're exploring what is those 4 crosswalks there. And we didn't implement that on the demo, because we had too much else in front of us, okay? But that's also what we heard from some of the businesses. So really, we're looking for input from everybody. What is, do we want 4 crossings there, or do we want 2? So what we've heard is, 2, but what 2 are those, okay? And so go out there just like I did. Go out there, watch some things, and then put it into, the community discussion on it, okay? So that we can land that is not, high risk, but allows that access, okay? So that's what I have.
Good job.
Was that 15 minutes?
Close.
Okay. Okay, so really it's just a report, to receive the report at this point, and just know that we're working on it. And if there's anybody interested in any information, this will be up on the website, but also just call us. Call me, and I can take you out for, a tour, okay?
I'm just curious what sea level rise will do. How do we work sea level rise into this plan? Does it all happen at the water's edge, or what's going to happen going this way? Anyway, so I'm sure you're considering all of that.
Yeah, we consider that with every project, especially on the coast, because Coastal Commission requires us.
Right,
okay.
right.
Thank
Great.
you.
Okay. All right. Consent calendar.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks, Bob, and thanks to the businesses down there when we're down there. They've been very patient with that project and very open to us about what they'd like to see and what's working and what's not. So again, thank you. So the consent calendar, item 1 is approval of the minutes from the October 1st, 2024 regular city council meeting. Seeking approval, item 2, approval of total expenditures for September 23rd, 2024 through October 4th, 2024, totaling $1,845,705.11. Item 3, adopt a resolution accepting the fiscal year 24-25 first quarter treasurer's report. And item 4, authorize the procurement of MSA G1 Deluxe custom harness packs, bottles, and accessories for a not-to-exceed sum of $400,000 as budgeted in the fiscal year 24-25 capital improvement plan, project number 244501, and that's for the SCBA's for the fire department.
Any questions, or what is your pleasure?
I'll make a motion to approve items 1 through 4.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, call for the vote. Well, call, but.
All ayes.
Item number 5.
Item number 5 is a public hearing for the fiscal year 2024-2025 miscellaneous fee schedule revisions. At this time, Matt will come to the podium, just highlight the items of minor changes. I ask council to hear a presentation, open the public hearing for public comments, close the public hearing, and if consensus, adopt the fee schedule as proposed.
Good evening, council, again. We just had a few updates to the fee schedule that we wanted to bring before council. Kind of the most notable one is our notary fees. So we do have a notary on staff now at City Hall. And so occasionally we'll have things that require being notarized. And so we can offer that service to the public if they need something notarized in the course of their business with the city. And so we've added the notary fee section to the schedule. The other updates were relatively minor. We've added a daily temporary residential permit. That's $2 per day. I believe the situation is that the monthly permit didn't make sense given some of the travel patterns of some of the residents utilizing that. And so we wanted to provide a daily option as well.
So that's under the oversized vehicle section?
Yes.
That is the section it's under, but it's not necessarily for oversized vehicles.
I was kind of confused by that. So are those blue sticker vehicles or any vehicle or what?
Here's 2 examples. One is an interior resident going to a doctor's appointment, and they're gone for 2 days, and they need a approval or a permit showing they can park overnight in Avalon. And then another example would be, I went to the DMV, I'm waiting 3 days, I'll get my registration squared away so I can get my full sticker. You know, people not wanting to pay the full month fee, just, a couple bucks to get them through until they get that DMV registration squared away.
So it was costing them $36.
So that would be for autoettes and everything?
Yeah, for everything. Just $2 in those weird scenarios where it's a temporary, yeah.
Gotcha. I was just I'm like, what? Yeah. So thank you.
Do you have any questions of Matt?
So then the only other 2 edits is we did increase the full day Tremont Hall rental fee for Group 2, which is our resident private use or non-for-profit use, from $125 to $150. And then lastly, we increased the fire department firefighter public safety hourly rate from 75 to 81. That's the fully recoup so they, as part of their MOU, when they are call outs for special events, they're paid at a rate of 75 per hour per their MOU. So the 81 also recoups the employer tax portion of that. And so since I was updating other things, I thought I'd update that. And we also didn't have an overtime call out for them specifically in there. There was one under the public works section, so I went ahead and added an overtime section. So most of it's kind of minor housekeeping, but since we did, really the motivator was the new notary fees. And so since we had to bring it before you for the notary fees, we thought we would also do some cleanup.
Any questions?
And Matt, what was the reason for us raising it from 125 to 150 for the rental?
Looking for Dave Hart here.
We have a significant improvement project that's going to take place up there. Redoing the kitchen, redoing the bathrooms, redoing flooring, lighting.
Perfect.
Okay. Well then, have you completed your presentation?
That is my presentation.
Okay. Well then, we will open the public hearing. Any comments? We will close the public hearing.
And Mayor Marshall, I just want to point out there is a resolution attached to the staff report, but it's not included in the recommended action, so I did want to point that out.
Okay. Your pleasure.
I make a motion to adopt the fee schedule as proposed.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay. Call for the vote. Oh, come on. Get the old thing back here.
So many screens.
Thank you.
Go. All ayes.
Okay. Item number 6.
Item number 6 is a appeal of the Planning Commission action number 24-08, the Planning Commission number 2842, approving a site plan, conditional use permit, variance and coastal development permit at 301 Beacon Street. And Kelly is here to present this issue.
Good evening, council and staff. As City Manager mentioned, this was an appeal of the site plan, conditional use permit, variance, and coastal development permit to allow demolition of a vacant 3-story apartment building and construction of a new 4-story hotel with employee housing at 301 Beacon Street in the special commercial zone. Variances were requested because the proposed project did not comply with the development standards set forth in the municipal code as follows. It was to allow a building height of 28 to 44 feet with an additional 10 feet for the elevator building and mechanical kitchen restroom building on the roof where 28 feet is allowed. To allow 97% lot coverage where a maximum of 80% is allowed. And to allow a 383% floor area where a maximum of 140% is allowed. It was the opinion of staff that the findings of fact to support the variances and the other entitlements could be made, as there were special circumstances related to the lot topography that would have otherwise deprived the property of the development potential that other lots that are flatter in the same zone enjoy under our development standards. After consideration of the findings in the staff report, the applicant presentation and public comment, the Planning Commission voted 7-0 to adopt a resolution to approve the project with the conditions recommended by staff, including the following additional conditions that are relevant to the appeal. One of them was to require a minimum 14-foot rear setback to the south property line to the adjacent property at 310 Metropole Avenue. Require a minimum of 1 hotel staff member be present on the roof deck at all times when food and beverages were being served. And that the applicant needed to coordinate with Public Works to determine the location for and be responsible for the cost of construction and construction of a new crosswalk across Beacon Avenue at that intersection to serve the project site. On September 9th, 2024, Diana Conover, the owner at 310 Metropole Avenue, and Robert and Lori Glazer, owners at 314 Metropole Avenue, filed a timely appeal of the Planning Commission's decision. The appeal application detailed a number of concerns that they wanted City Council to consider. One was the findings for the granting of the height variance. potential impacts to the views of adjacent properties on Metropole Avenue to the coast and surrounding hillsides that would be caused by the development of the project, potential for increased traffic and noise in the area due to the planned rooftop bar, the amount of parking provided on the project site and how that might impact parking demand in the area, and the Planning Commission's decision to not require updated plans to show compliance with those conditions for their review, but instead directing staff to review the updated plans for compliance. We included kind of a detailed analysis of all of these assertions and staff's response in the staff report. I'm happy to go into detail on any of those if you'd like. But overall, the Planning Commission did fully consider the impacts of the project related to these topics during the approval of the project and imposed additional conditions as they deemed necessary based on the staff report, public testimony, and the applicant's presentation. Staff supports the Planning Commission's approval of the project as presented at the August meeting, as discussed above. I'll defer to Scott Campbell to kind of explain the parameters by which you'll be reviewing the appeal.
Yes, and just so the council understands, I am here in the capacity of representing the city in favor of the granting of, in favor of denying the appeal, because we advise city staff during the Planning Commission process and help prepare the staff report. So under the ethical rules, we have another law firm here to answer any questions from the council. So Bill Litvak is available. There he is. Hi, Bill. Bill is with the firm of DePere, Litvak, and Rosenblatt, or I may have got the names right. Their firm serves as our vehicle hearing counsel. And so under the municipal code, which is specific to Avalon, you have 4 options. You can affirm the action of the Planning Commission. That means just deny the appeal. You can ask for basically more evidence and review the transcript, and then have a hearing and continue it to review that. You can refer the matter back to the Planning Commission. Or you can set the matter for another hearing before yourselves to actually, consider the actual denial of the appeal if you were so inclined to deny the appeal. And these are specific to Avalon. They're not state law, so they're there are Avalon-specific procedures that you have enacted, or the council enacted like 2 or 3 decades ago.
So I'd be happy to field any questions you might have for staff, or the applicant, Mike Flynn, is here and to provide a presentation for you as well.
Did anybody want to start with questions or comments?
Yeah. In all of the plans, looking through there and the ones online and staff report and everything, I didn't see any drawings of the drop-off and loading zone. It says it's adjacent, but where is it?
Sure. So there's an existing loading zone on Metropole Avenue. So that's kind of slightly up south from the corner of Metropole and Beacon. The applicant is proposing to retain that existing loading zone, and then in addition put a new 30-foot long loading zone on Beacon Street. So right there around the corner at the entrance to where the hotel would be. And that one would be created as part of the street improvements.
Well, so if people were coming from the boat and going to the hotel, they'd be coming up Beacon, and the hotel would be on this side of the street. So would the taxi drop them off here and they'd have to cross the street, which is a very, very busy corner there? Or are they going to try and turn around at the St. Laurent, or are they going to go down Metropole and turn around and come back up? Or is it possible we can have Mr. Flynn put a little cut in like the Metropole Hotel?
Can I ask a question? A question responding to a question?
Yeah.
Well, how does the St. Laurent do it? They're on the other side. They're part of the street too.
Right, I'm only,
Just-
yeah,
but
I don't know. So, yeah, the taxi goes up there and waits, and then it goes and parks in front of their place. So I'm just asking,
But I'm just saying.
Yeah.
That it does it for the St. Laurent now, so.
Okay.
Doesn't the St. Laurent have a little bit of space where the taxi could be
They
off
have a
of
little bit more, but they still have to make that.
Yeah.
That
No, I see what you
turn
mean. I
to
guess
get into the.
it would just be blocking two ways, if you know what I mean, instead of them blocking just one.
Yeah, so I can definitely defer to the applicant for more specifics, but the way that the project was presented to staff and we interpreted it was that the drop-off for vehicles would be at the front entrance on their side of the street, so the south side of Beacon.
And would take up 30 feet.
It would be 30-foot drop-off zone, which could also be served by private or like for Circuit, for instance. And that would be combined with a new crosswalk to, be worked out with Public Works at that intersection to facilitate foot traffic, since obviously there isn't one there right now, and it is a very traveled intersection.
Yeah, that intersection right now is weird, so.
Yeah.
I'll ask the next question just in conjunction with the parking as well, and for Mike, for when you're ready to come up for answers and stuff. My concern was actually requiring the off-street parking. It would actually create a curb cut and remove a parking space on a street that is very impacted by parking. And so my hesitation in agreeing with that part of the discussion was actually that it would remove parking as opposed to helping with parking. Whether that means that it becomes part of the space in front, or whether it means that they defer to coast or taxis for service and not have a commercial autoet. My understanding is the St. Laurent does not have a commercial vehicle that it utilizes for transportation currently. Is that correct?
That I don't know.
Okay.
They do not.
They don't, right? So that was part of my question or ask, is if that's a possibility to perhaps not allow for that. I understand you may need it for staff to run errands or do purchasing for breakfast and things too. So trying to figure out how we can manage that. But I would almost rather see that parking on Metropole remain available as opposed to being curb cut for the sake of providing a parking space but losing a parking space. I have concerns about that whole intersection, and I agree that it would be helpful or beneficial to have crosswalks there. I don't know if crosswalks are necessarily enough with the speeds that people go around that corner. And so, not that I want to be the one to recommend it, but perhaps it's time to look at lights for walking, which are common in many small towns everywhere, and make that part of the requirement for the project. It doesn't have to be stoplights necessarily, but it can be the light-up crosswalks that have a walk guide for when you can walk and not, and make them all walk at the same time, and maybe even across the cross type of crosswalk, so that you can cross the whole intersection and traffic pauses for that cross and then keeps going again. That it may make it more amenable for the amount of traffic that could get added to that corner because of the hotel being there.
So piggybacking on your parking too, in a lot of the report, it's talking about the one commercial autoet that's going to be parked in there too. But then further down in the staff report, it's talking about there's going to be 4 full-time employees on site that could be entitled to an autoet. So then where are they going to park?
So it would be street parking if they qualified. So they were, and of course, again, it's whether they qualify for a permit or not. You have to be a resident at least 9 months of the year to do that.
So we could possibly add 4 more vehicles to that already congested, very, very congested street.
We could make
But-
it almost like an ADU that they're not allowed to have a parking spot.
I mean, part of me says, yes, that's true, but also part of me says if it was back into a residential zone with multiple single units, you'd have way more vehicles.
True.
So it's not as many vehicles as that.
True.
Which is a benefit, but also, yes, definitely. I mean, that street is a one-sided parking street. It's already impacted by vehicle traffic, and I would argue out of all the streets in Avalon, it's one of the streets that most people actually do need a vehicle because of the steepness and
grade,
everything,
yeah.
the grade of the street.
Yeah.
So that's tough to swallow.
But that's assuming that they're going to park on Metropole.
Right.
They've got
Right, they can go
Beacon,
down.
they've got Metropole down this way.
Right.
They're not necessarily going to park on Upper Metropole.
Right. It's very true.
But it's taking 3 other spots from that beacon, which is already greatly impacted between Metropole and.
But there's also Metropole in front of the community church. It's not like they're parking far away should they have their own personal golf cart.
Yeah.
The other thing is that it's centrally located, that they just walk down the hill to Vaughn's, walk down the hill to the post office.
So they shouldn't need a vehicle.
Well, but we just can't deny them the vehicle, but.
Right. And then switching gears to another thing, I watched the original meeting, and that's when Mr. Flynn agreed to make the 14 feet concession, and also he said 4 feet down because of the lady that was up the street. But in the new plans, there's nothing that shows height reduction. Is that?
These aren't new plans though, right? These are the original plans.
Right, but in the packet,
Yeah.
they finally, I asked Devin and she put the attachments, so the attachments are at the back.
So there are two sets of plans included in the staff report for you. One is the set that was part of the Planning Commission package, so that's attachment 2 or 3. And attachment 5 is the conceptual plan that Mr. Flynn has put together that's, not approved or finalized, that just kind of shows a proof of concept for the reduction in the rear setback. And as he's beginning to work through what the project will look like with that additional setback. So that's in progress. There's nothing that's been additionally approved by staff since this went to Planning Commission, but that's what that additional set of plans is.
Would you like to say something, sir?
Well, we usually let the
applicant talk first.
Yeah, the appellant.
Appellant,
because
speak
it's
first.
the appellant's burden.
Okay.
Oh.
Going to talk.
Over here?
So the appellant is Tom? So Tom is the appellant?
Yes.
I'm not an attorney.
That'd be,
That'd be you.
it's my sister Diane, but. Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the council. My name is Tom Conover, and my family has owned the property at 310 Metropole since 1965. And I'm here today to give public statement about the appeal to the variances granted by the Planning Commission to Mike Flynn, developer of property at 301 Beacon, my neighbor next door. My sister Diane, she was not able to be here today, so I'm here speaking on her behalf. I'm going to be having a couple of hats here, but speaking on her behalf, and she, along with the owners of 314 Metropole, want to express their concern over the granted variations. In particular, my sister, and rightly so, in discussions that we had at the Planning Commission, it was told to us that this sun deck on top of the hotel is not going to be a bar and restaurant. But in the application, it says bar and restaurant. So before that variance should be granted, that verbiage should be taken out of there so that there's no gray area as to what we're talking about up on top of the hotel. I think it is going to be a bar and restaurant. The property at 301 Beacon happens to sit at the end of a residential street. It's zoned commercial, how it's zoned, but it sits at the end of a residential street. And the people that live there, you were talking about parking, you were talking about congestion, noise, all these things come into play. The building that is there now fits within the guidelines of Avalon Municipal Code, okay? It's 80%, actually it's less than 80% of the building to lot and 140% floor size to lot ratio. With the variances that were granted, that increases the size of the building. Now, you've all gone by that corner. You know how big the original building is. A lot of good can be done with that building, tear it down and put something up. But in that footprint would be very good for the community. The variances that were granted are going to double the size of that building. So going up, coming back slightly, about 16 feet, is going to nearly double the size of the floor footprint of the building. That is going to impact the neighbors around us, and I'm putting on my hat because where we sit, we're down below where all this is going to take place. But putting the extra story on top is going to actually affect everybody up the hill from us. The people up the hill are going to get a wonderful view of a rooftop bar and restaurant forever and ever and ever. So. Went through that. The variances that were granted, yeah, so pretty much that is my take. What I was saying at the Planning Commission really hasn't changed, which is that the size of the building is going to be too big for that particular lot. Okay, so there it is. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Yes.
I'm Tom also. I'm the uphill property. Regarding the proposed development application, PC 2842 of 301 Beacon Street. My name is Tom O'Brien. I'm speaking on behalf of the owners and numerous families residing at 314 Metropole and the family residing at 310 Metropole. Special variance. The proposed development deviates significantly from the allowable development standards in the SC zone, particularly in the terms of height limitations, lot coverage, and floor area. The development standards in the SC zone allow a height limit of 28 feet, while the development proposes a height of 44 feet with an additional 10 feet for a rooftop elevator, kitchen, and restroom enclosure, bringing it to 54 feet, virtually twice the allowable height. This greatly affects the views and enjoyment of neighboring properties for our owners and occupants. It eliminates views of neighbors. The proposed development would reduce and eliminate mountain and coastline views, diminishing the enjoyment of these scenic views for our homes and neighboring properties, thereby decreasing the rental and property values. We have invested in our homes to maximize our views, and the proposed development undermines our hard-earned right to enjoy our surroundings. Increased noise. The proposed development includes a rooftop bar and restaurant area with a capacity of up to 100 people, which will increase noise level from gatherings and other activities, open from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., further disturbing the peaceful environment of the neighborhood. Mr. Flynn asserted that the rooftop space would be for hotel guests to gather and relax and not for a restaurant bar with a 100-person capacity. If this is indeed his intention, then the bar and restaurant terminology currently in the application should be removed to avoid any confusion of what will actually be allowed. Once completed, the new development will attract additional traffic, strain the area, limit roadways, exacerbating current traffic issues. This increase in noise and traffic will negatively impact the quality of life for nearby residents and diminish the overall appeal of the area. Precedent. This proposed development sets a dangerous precedent. Will we be allowed to add an additional story on top of our existing structure with a rooftop bar, restaurant, open long hours, blocking our neighbors' views and adding considerable noise from early morning to late at night? And what if this proposed development was going in your house, on your block? As owners and residents of Avalon, we reiterate that the proposed development does not properly take into consideration neighboring property owners and residents of the city. Although we strongly oppose the proposed development, we do agree that a redevelopment of a deteriorating building would be beneficial to residents, tourists, and the city. However, it needs to follow the development standards as it is stated in the zoning code and not be granted special variances that deprive others of their enjoyment of the island. If a variance is allowed for this development, then how can you rightfully deny similar variances going forward? And to quote Jerry Reed, he gets the gold mine, we get the elevator shaft. Thank you.
Thank you. It's sure cold in here. Is that AC still on? I love it.
Dave Thompson, 110 Chimes, Tower Road. I just wanted to, one thing that I got the plans from 10/20, which is just a few days ago, and it shows 4 staff studios. It does not show units. It doesn't have any kitchens, so they're basically just the size of a hotel room. And the idea is that we're trying to provide decent housing for people that are going to work there. Otherwise, we're kind of shooting ourselves with this, trying to provide more housing for the general people that are living and working here. You don't want to put them in a closet. That's not going to be any good. That is primarily what I have to say about that.
Thank you, Dave. So we've had all of that, and I didn't really even open the public hearing, did I?
No, you didn't.
I did.
But I think Mike wants to speak.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. My name is Mike Flynn, 417 Alta Vista, Avalon. Couple things. One is you brought up a number of points, and I'd like to address them if we could. The parking, when we went through the process, we moved the building from what was a 3-foot setback on the rear yard to 14 feet, plus there's a 5-foot walkway that goes in front of the Conovers building. So when you look at that, they went from 5 feet plus 3, which would be 8 feet total, as that open space between the buildings. Now they have that plus another 11 feet. So it's almost 20 feet, 19, 20 feet of separation between the buildings. That area, and I've talked with Tom and talked with the rest of their family, that area is intended to be paved and concrete all the way across the back of that. That gives you more parking spaces if we, for some reason, you guys decide they should have parking spaces. I'm adamantly opposed to having staff have parking spaces. The location of the building, location of the hotel, it's a block within, 2 blocks within the beach block to Vaughn's. There's really no need for it, and we have a floating golf cart. I wanted to have none. They decided we probably need to have at least one, so I went with that. But the way that the hotel is set up, my understanding is there was 2 ways the rooms could be decided for the staff. One is that they would go on a monthly rental, or they'd be credited back on a monthly rental type basis. The other way is that they would be handled as a hotel room, which means that I would have to pay TOT tax on those rooms because they're a hotel room. I would prefer to do that and to pay for that, only because if there's ever a problem where an employee doesn't work out or you have to have an employee removed, it's very difficult to be able to get them to be removed if they're doing a month-by-month rental and then also to not working there. That's not what these rooms are designed for. Half of these rooms are workforce housing rooms, and half of them are for staff. There is 4 to 5 staff members, which by the code requires me to have 50%, 2 to 3 rooms for them. And then we have workforce housing that is not required at all. I have 13 beds for workforce housing in combination with staff. And I've listened to you guys, I've heard about it, I've had people that, because of this moratorium on people renting, we need more housing, we need more housing. I built Triana. I've done a number of other projects to try to provide housing, and if one of the reasons for the roof and for the height is because the lower floor is 3/4 housing for us, not people that are hotel, they're people that are management, staff, and workforce housing. And it has a separate entrance in the back, so it doesn't have to participate in and out with the hotel. But again, if you do decide to give a housekeeper or a handyman or a manager an additional golf cart, I can't control that, but I can control providing a parking space if that's what they needed. So you don't have to add any more or take away any more parking on Metropole and Beacon. In regards to the curb cut, a golf cart is roughly 6 feet, so if we had a 7-foot curb cut in that, I think we can adjust the parking as far as the drop-off and loading zones. We don't need a big loading zone on the backside. The only thing it would ever possibly have is just some freight that would be able to go in and out of there. But the way that it's designed now, if you look at it, they would have to go up and down 3 flights of stairs to get to any place to drop off materials. They're going to go to the front. And if you look at the plan versus what the Planning Commission requested versus what you have now, the lobby has moved further closer to Vaughn's, so it's further away from the corner of Beacon and Metropole, which allows for a safer drop-off and more area to move around. And what the taxi cab drivers do now, one of two things. One is if it's really busy, I watch them. They go down, and they'll go down and make the loop and come back, or they'll try to make the U-turn if it's not busy right there in front of the San Loren and where the Cameron Hotel would be. So I think if we move the drop-off area down the street a little bit, that only helps that situation. And I think being able to control with multiple pedestrian crossings and that kind of thing, those are options, and they do work in other communities. I'm happy to look at that. The one other thing is, as I've been working with Bob, there is not only coming down the sidewalk of Metropole, when you get to Beacon, that sidewalk is only 4 foot wide. There happens to be a telephone pole right in the middle of it all. And that only allows 20 inches on each side of it. You're either in the street or in the building. So we've been working with the Rule 20 monies that are available, and the idea is to get that pole removed and underground around this corner, the utilities, so we don't have those poles sitting, where they are, because they're not conducive to pedestrian traffic. So,
Okay, talk to me again about I'm not following you about the employees, because there's other people that have employee housing for their people, and if they don't work out, they leave. They have to leave. But and I don't know why your situation should be any different. And what about, can they cook? What will they have to cook?
In what we have in the kitchens for staff, there's 2 areas. They can go up on the roof, and they can eat on the roof. It's a public area. We have an area for staff that they can do. The other thing is that down below in this 14 feet, part of that can be a barbecue, sitting picnic table type area gathering. And then in the rooms, they will have kitchenettes. So there's a sink, there's a medium-sized small refrigerator, and there is a small cooktop. For fire and that kind of thing, you have to be very careful with having in that hotel setting a full-fledged kitchen in every one of them. But they can definitely cook in the rooms, and that's part of it. In all the rooms themselves, we'll have the coffee bars and the breakfast bar area with the small refrigerator as well.
And you mentioned something about the dropping off. Why wouldn't they drop off the stuff behind the hotel, because that's where your elevator is, correct?
Right.
So that's where they would want to go. They would drop off behind.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, you're going to be dropping off linens and things like that, possibly in the back.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I can walk over and show you.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Isn't there already an unloading zone in front of Casa Mariquita? So
Drop-off zone? Yeah.
Wouldn't they just, since they're already making a U-turn, drop off there? I mean, the visitors can just walk across the street. If there's already an unloading zone.
Oh, I see. There and then walk like
They
that.
have to go down, come back up, make a U-turn. I'm just saying, why add another one? They can just walk across the street. It's really not that
Easier
difficult.
with the St. Laurent.
Well, I don't think we want our visitors to have to go there and, if we can avoid that.
I mean, you have one unloading that helps 3 hotels.
But you could also just drop them off in front of the community church too, because it's just.
But the only thing with the issue with that, they would have to cross the street. If they do it in front of Casa Mariquita, they just have to follow along the sidewalk.
They still have to cross the street.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be as dangerous as crossing from the teen center.
That's what we put in.
You know what I mean?
we put in crosswalks.
Yeah, I'm all for that, if we have the funding for that.
Okay.
So before,
Oh, sorry.
in the previous plan,
I'm sorry.
the lobby was located here.
Okay.
On this corner, which was because of the crosswalk. The other thing is it needs to move away from that area. So the lobby is now located in this location.
Okay.
From this portion of the building, basically from here back, is underground, because this area back here on the second floor is at grade. So when we get into this percentages of what's going on with the building and all that, again, a good 60% of this building is a basement, for lack of a better term. What we did is that we set that lower wall here back away from the street. So this is an open air walkway to all of these rooms. So all those rooms have windows, they have good ventilation. It's not a closed up, sealed up basement. So, and if you come in through the main lobby area, there's an elevator here that goes directly to the top. So you don't have to stop all the elevators on every floor. And then on this side, this is the one that's intended to service each floor of the hotel. If you're in the workforce area, what happens is from here back, this is all concrete, but this is below ground. So the concrete is from here back, the whole length, 35 feet of the width of the property. And what happens is that when you come into that lower area, you come in and you go down and you go underneath back to the lower area. So all you'll have on top is, instead of a lot of stairs on the side of the building, you're going to have a railing, a 42-inch railing for safety reasons, and that'll be just over that stairwell, and you'll descend down through it and disappear underneath that platform. Any questions up to that? Because I don't want to move on to something else before.
No. I kind of agree with Dave, though, because I was looking at the new plans, too, and I'm looking at the old plans, and it says that 4 units of year-round employee housing individually include living space, a kitchen, and a private bathroom, and that is not indicated on the new plans. And I didn't see any bunks. You see bunks in the old plans. Is it just because of a time constraint and they're just not finished? Your plans aren't really finished, or?
Oh, my plans are finished. What we did was, I did not want to, we need workforce housing here, and we need people to have a place to stay. What I did was, when we reduced 14 feet off the back of this building, that eliminated 6 rooms. You want open space, that's fine, but you lose the building. So what I did is that I didn't lose any workforce housing. It got scaled, it got moved around differently, and instead of having, before we had one consolidated area that had rooms in it, but had a central cooking area, well, we had to move that outside. So it's got to go up on top. If we give it away, that's a likely area for it to go into. In each of these rooms, they're not big lavish kitchens, they're studios. And where they're staying now, these are bigger than the rooms that I'm already keeping my guys in now. So it is my intent that the staff members, every room will have a kitchenette. It'll either have one or a shared bathroom. There's not 3 and 4 rooms using one bathroom. And they have their own facilities in their own private room. So in the plans, it'll have to reflect that, but that's what we're doing. We're providing that for them.
So when you say kitchenette, you're talking just like a microwave and a mini fridge?
Yeah, usually what they are, the ones that I've seen are like on a normal stove, you might have 6 or 4 cooking areas.
Burners, yeah.
With this, you'd have 2, and it's built in, and they're actually units that you buy. And they're built in, they have medium-sized refrigerators in them, they already have the sinks inside of them. So it functions as a kitchenette. I mean, you can do everything that you need to do. If you want to, and sometimes you don't want to use that, you can use the barbecue, they've got on the roof, they can use that area as well. So, I mean, there's 2 or 3 gathering places.
There's room for like an air fryer and that kind of stuff, people to put in there?
The toaster oven, you mean? Or something like that, air fryer,
Those
toaster
air
oven?
fryers that everybody's using now?
It's a countertop. Typically, they're about 6.5 feet long, and they're 2 feet wide, and it's all condensed, and all that's part of the same.
That's how most island company seasonal workers are anyways. Beach house, that's how they're set up.
8.5 years at Mount Ada, where 2 burners, was all one thing, kitchen sink, 2 burners, refrigerator. That's what I had, so, but yeah.
And Mike, are we talking all electric?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
You told me so.
That was my Edison hat.
Go ahead, thank you, Mike.
Just on the topic of housing, I just wanted, because we had a member of the public comment on it, and you've had several questions. I just want to kind of clarify how staff reviewed housing requirements for this project. So there's kind of 2 types of housing that Mike is discussing in his project. One is what he's calling workforce housing, but are really essentially dedicated and split off hotel style rooms that can be used on sort of a short-term basis, rented like a hotel room, paying TOT for for workers who come to the island. And then the other type of housing requirement, which is discussed in Chapter 911 of our Affordable Housing Ordinance, is employee housing, so employees for the hotel. And the original plans provided to Planning Commission that were approved, that included 4 essentially studio units for housekeepers or the manager of the hotel that has to have its own fully independent facilities. So that has to have a kitchenette. It has to have its own bathroom. It has to be a self-sufficient unit. Based on the anticipated employment that he provided us, full-time employment for the hotel, he estimated that would be 4 individuals. He would have only technically under code required to provide 2 units, but provided 4 in the plans that were reviewed by Planning Commission. So I know that we're kind of talking about 2 types of housing here. The employee housing for the hotel is the type that's subject to our employee housing requirements, the municipal code. The workforce housing is kind of its own separate thing. It's essentially hotel rooms that he's kind of purpose building for a particular clientele, essentially. And that's how that was reviewed. So it's only those employee units, the 4, that could, for instance, potentially qualify for auto-wet permits, not the hotel.
Kelly, can you address the rooftop bar and the alcohol provisions that are in the conditions of approval so council can understand those?
Sure. So when the application was reviewed by staff and the staff report prepared for Planning Commission, it was our understanding and what we analyzed that the rooftop deck area would include food service, that food service would be available to guests of the hotel and could be open to the general public as well. And that ideally what the applicant was looking to do was to kind of provide light food service like tapas and appetizers and things of that nature, and also beverages, including alcohol. In the conditions of approval that were provided by Planning Commission, they specified hours of operation for that rooftop deck, whether food is being served or not, that has to be staffed by an employee of the hotel to ensure that everyone's behaving themselves. They are required to come back to Planning Commission for a separate conditional use permit for alcohol sales. So alcohol sales was not approved as part of this application. They would have to come back, and alcohol sales would be reviewed by Planning Commission and conditioned appropriately at that time. And if they are intending to have any kind of events at the hotel, as for instance, they want to host a wedding or a birthday party, they have to get a special event permit from the city for that event. So those are the conditions that are already in place on the application.
And it's our view that if they wanted to serve alcohol, again, they go back to the Planning Commission, and then the Planning Commission can condition it and put very severe conditions on that in terms of additional noise requirements as a condition to being able to serve alcohol. Without that, no alcohol can be...
or deny it, totally.
Or deny it, totally, yes, exactly.
And you'd have to have a liquor license.
Yeah.
Yeah, ABC will not issue a liquor license unless the city provides a conditional use permit approval.
So if I'm workforce housing, okay, and I basically would, if we were all there as workforce housing working in sleepy dinner beds and we wanted to have dinner on the deck, would you say, I'm sorry, you can't eat up there because we have all these guests in the hotel and you're not going to mix? No mixed use? How are you going to keep us from getting on the deck?
Currently, let me just tell you how it works today.
I'm sorry?
I tell you how it works today with where they stay.
Okay.
A lot of our people stay at the El Torado. They have a front deck, and that front deck has a couple of barbecues out there. The guys come home. I don't have them here on vacation. They're working. So they get off at 6. They're dead tired because they've been working all day long. They just want to get something to eat, take a shower, go to bed because they got to be back on the job site the next morning. And I don't tolerate any drinking by my staff, by guys that are working here. If I catch them, they're gone because I can't have hangovers the next morning on a job site. It's not safe. So what I envision would happen here is that rooftop deck is what I've said in the past, and I agreed to at Planning Commission. It doesn't need to be a public space. It's only for the patrons of the hotel. And it's a place where they can go up, lounge, relax in the evening, and have a glass of wine, and it's set up, not as a big bunch of tables, on a continuous basis with a kitchen functioning. The kitchen is 12 by 15. It's not very big. The reason why those buildings are as large as they are is I have to have it accessible for handicap. So my ADA requirements require the elevators to be a certain size, and it requires 2 bathrooms up on top, which takes up half of that building. So that's what's going on with that. But to the original question with staff, my guys would not probably go up and be with hotel guests. And we have 2 kind of areas that they could be in if they wanted to. But the staff, well, they want to go to their own place. They don't want to be around a bunch of other people.
Plus you have that big patio or that big area in the
You've got
back.
a nice big patio. I mean, it's the same kind of patio that the condos are, and they enjoy it.
Yeah.
There's no reason why, my guys wouldn't do the same.
Okay.
So,
So Kelly just said that it was open to the public. Does that mean at any time?
not open to the public.
Oh.
In order to get it's not open to the public. It's not a restaurant. The only time that you would have, I would think, multiple people there is if we apply for a permit and somebody would have a wedding. And I would think that it would be a perfect venue for that, because right now today, you have people staying in multiple hotels, and then their destination is somewhere else where they're having the wedding. So then you got buses and places, you got to schlep everybody all over the place. Here, they can get on an elevator and go upstairs, and the most that you would have up there, talking with Mike and with John, it would be that we capped it out at 100 people. That's for the wedding purposes, not for the daily activity. There's only 30 hotel rooms in this and 13 workforce housing. So those 30 hotels, if we had 2 people in a room, we'd maximum have a 60 if everybody went to the roof at one time.
Oh, okay.
But if there's a special event, we have to go through the permit process.
Understand. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike.
If I could, I would like to say just a couple things in general, because I tried to answer a few specific questions. But just, I know you guys are coming kind of late to the game on this, and it's hard to absorb that whole big folder and all the stuff that's there. But what we did to get to this point, I think I misspoke at Planning Commission, and I need to correct the file here, is that I said that I had been working with Lynn on a monthly basis, trying to do something with the Cameron Hotel site for 11 years. And I was corrected by Lynn. It's actually been 14 years. And I think she referred to them as long years when she said that to me. So this has been going on for a long time. The Cameron family is still going to retain ownership of the property at the end of the day. What we are doing is we're making all the capital improvements. Then we have a long-term land lease. That's how this gets afforded. And what we have with this, when we started this, we started working with Planning Commission, started working with your staff, made our presentation for our pre-construction stuff almost a year ago. And so this has been an ongoing, morphing to get to this point with what this has actually turned out to be. And, I did listen to, there was one of the neighbors that had a problem with the view, and I went and sat and looked and see what she was saying. She's absolutely right. It was blocking the view. So I dropped the building down. And it wasn't an easy task. I had to go back to the architects and say, here's what we're doing. And they all looked at me like I was crazy. Then when we got into the final throes of going through their last approvals, what we did is sat down with the Conovers, and then I saw what they were up against. So I say, okay, well, let's work this out. If we have to, I don't want to have a disgruntled neighbor with me for the next 50 years. So what we did is that we moved that building back 14 feet, but there's a cost to that. That's 6 rooms that we gave up in order to be able to accomplish that. Now, it may work out to be a betterment for another issue, and that is if it comes to a point where we need parking. Because we've got 35 feet by 14 feet that has nothing on it. So each step of the way with this stuff, it is kind of gone to a point where I still have to make sense out of it financially to do it, because I don't own it. I only get to use it for the next 30 or 40 years. We had to go through a historical evaluation on the building, which was a big analysis that we did, and that took about 3 or 4 months. We got through that. It's not a pyramid, so it doesn't have any real value to it as far as a historical building, so it can come down. The building is riddled with lead and asbestos. It's got termites. I tried to see if I could salvage that building, and I can't. It's just not salvageable. It doesn't meet any of today's codes. Doesn't work. We hired CEQA consultants to go over and look at views and noise and traffic and figure out what we have as far as our parameters, from that standpoint. And so we've done a lot of stuff here to be able to get to this point. And I think that, here, this is about as best as I can do with this building. I mean, and still be able to pay for it, still do a nice job. I think the outside of the building is really a handsome building. It's pretty. It'll work within that whole area. We try to keep the same kind of motif that they have, board and batten, and just make it a little bit different. So we've made a valiant attempt here, and I hope that you realize that, and we move on from here. But again, I'm not trying to make this a big public restaurant on top of a building with all kinds of noise and destroy the neighborhood. That's not what we're doing. And I don't think that the Conovers, when this is all done, they are more than 50, 60 feet away from their property line to where any noise could occur on that deck, because you have that 14 feet, then you have an 11-foot storage area behind the bathroom building, and then you have a patio in front of that. This property is 98 feet long, and the area for the patio for people to patronize is only 48 feet. So half of it is obstruction, so, okay.
I'm still not hearing anything or seeing anything about the 4 feet that you promised you would come down at the Planning Commission meeting.
When we did the original plan, we had a variance that we were applying for because it was the building height was at 33 feet. And then I went and met with Jody, and before we got to Planning Commission, I went and I reduced that down to 28 feet. The problem with the building and problem with the lot is from that back corner where the 28 feet is measured to the opposite corner of the building, the property drops 13 feet. So this 44 feet thing is coming only because the lot is dropping. 3/4 of that basement, as I said before, 60% of the basement is a basement, it's underground. The building is built up at the level of the second floor from the start.
I got you. Well, I'm not an architect and I'm not a planner, but all I know is that I watched the meeting that you were on, and these plans were at that meeting.
Correct.
And you said at that meeting that you were going to come down 4 feet, and I don't see it.
It actually came down 5 feet.
Anywhere.
And what it is, it's because the earlier rendition, what we had already made that change. I met with Jody before that. We had already made that change, and you have the reduction already when we went to Planning Commission.
Well, that wasn't clear, so, okay.
Yeah. No, original plan was at 33 feet.
Mike
As we
gets
drove
nervous
it.
sometimes when he's at Planning Commission, public speaking.
Mike, nervous? Huh?
I was nervous.
Okay.
We
and
go back.
Dave Thompson had something he wanted to say. Thanks, Mike.
I think what I'm hearing here is the idea is that I think the city should be trying to make good housing, okay? A hotel room, who wants to live in a hotel room for years and years and years? Be serious. You know, you have a manager's unit that it basically has no place to sit. It doesn't, it's a hotel room. It's nothing different than that. I don't know what kind of options. There's some options. You could take some of this workforce housing and redo this plan, because right now, I don't think it's acceptable. I don't think anybody here wants to live in a hotel room and be expected to be part of the community. And if somebody has a kid, or they're working there and they get pregnant and have a child, you're going to want to have a couple in this thing? I think you should take the opportunity, and down the road, Vaughn should have built workforce housing. Zane Gray should have built workforce housing. This is where we are now, so this should provide workforce housing, because down the road, everybody should be more required to do that. Otherwise, we're not going to get anywhere.
So I'll make a comment to that. What I tried to do is to keep the numbers for workforce housing. I'm only required to build 2 to 2.5. So let's just say worst case 3. I can get rid of 13 and make them 3 and make them big and nice, but if that's what you want. But I'm trying to take care of numbers, and I know what I run as far as a crew, and I know where they stay now, and I know that what I'm providing is better than what they've already got, what we've been living with for 15 years. This, again, I reduced hotel rooms down when I went from Planning Commission to tonight. But what I didn't do is reduce staff or workforce housing. If you want me to do that, I can create fewer workforce housing and make them nice and big and lavish. And, you know, they have, every one of them, they have places to sit and they have places to eat, but I can do that. We tried to keep the same numbers as we had before. And the rooms, as far as their counts, not that much difference. I lost hotel rooms, not workforce housing units.
And I think what Dave is saying is for those 4 units that you have, the one on each floor, making those more livable. Those are the units, right, Dave, that you're addressing?
Ground floor.
Well, that's why when I did Triana, the whole project is workforce housing. I mean, I still have 6 credits on workforce housing. I could very simply come here tonight and say, I'm not going to build anything. I already have 6 credits. I already built 16 units there. It doesn't solve the problem. So, you know, and this is a 30-room hotel, not a Vaughn's grocery store or something larger than that. When we did the museum, we only had to build, I think we only supplied one inclusionary housing unit, so.
That was another one.
So.
I don't disagree with Dave, but I also know, having grown up working for the Island Company, that it was 3 people to a room at the Atwater before they had air conditioning and bathrooms across the hall. So the challenge I think we have is both redefining what we will allow for workforce housing, which the timing of it would not be done, I don't think, in time for this project to move forward, unfortunately. You know, I don't disagree, Dave, that it would be nicer to have additional amenities available for them. I think that part of the inclusionary housing needs to be reviewed and changed and looked at so that it's both beneficial to the employees in town and making sure that it's not just adequate, but it's respectable housing that they can live in and be comfortable in, but also making sure that businesses are held up to their part of the agreement and that we're making sure we're reviewing properly. I think the museum has more than 2 full-time year-round staff, so having 1 inclusionary unit for the museum probably doesn't add up to what it should be. But anyway, all for a different discussion. The space here that I can see in terms of the housing that you have looks like, for the most part, double bunks with a seating area. And I'm not noticing necessarily closet space in these rooms. So I saw 1 closet here, but not for this room or that room, and was curious about that. My hesitation in moving forward with this is not having a completed set of plans that we can review, printed out for us to review, and be able to have the public review as well. And so that's one of my questions, is can we do that, whether it's for us or for planning, to be able to look at that completely, to amend the language regarding the rooftop space being for hotel guests as opposed to the general public, and just making sure that's clear. I know there's guardrails for the additional parts of that, whether it's food service or the rest of it, and I understand the needs for why you have to have what you need to have in that space. One of the things that was requested was looking at the overall height of the building. I think that because of the precedent set with the St. Lawrence, the precedent of what you have currently is within what is allowable and recommended even by the city. Because of that, we need to, at a future date, create the zoning law for properties that are commercial with multiple slopes. There isn't one currently that addresses that. And so we have to go with best practice, which in that neighborhood at that same location is the back of the lot at the highest point with the 28-foot, which is what it is. So that fits within the scope. But because the building slopes, that street line slopes both directions, it makes the front of the building feel much larger. It's significantly better than what is there right now. I don't want to have anyone think that we're not excited about a project in that space. I think it's well overdue and we're excited for it. I am thankful that you dropped that extra 5 feet from 33 to 28 before this was presented. I think that makes sense. The hard part for me is that in Planning Commission and learning from planning, view shed was never a protected piece of the puzzle. And that kind of kills my soul, because I hate that it impacts people behind them, but it also isn't protected under our ordinance and is very difficult to protect unless you're literally at the ocean. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, but I think a finalized set of plans with a review either by us or by Planning Commission is where I'm looking at right now with those changes in mind. And then again, the parking, again, I don't know if it's better for you to not have the parking spot for now and see how that goes and not do the curb cut so that it doesn't impact parking on Metropole, or keep something in front of the building instead, as opposed to that for now and see how that goes. If it's necessary that we end up with parking in the future, then we can look at that as part of the changes that need to be made. But my hesitation is that you're removing parking in an impacted space already that may not be necessary. It'd be more beneficial for you to have a parking spot on the street somewhere in the neighborhood than it would be to have it off street and take away a parking spot. So that's where I'm at.
I have a question, because I'm thinking that there is. Is there a curb cut across the street at the St. Laurent where the laundry room is?
Yeah.
Then it's just, because you're not losing parking then, because you park on one side of the street for a while and then you park on the other side of the street.
Right, but you can't park in front of the curb cut on the days
I know,
off.
but
It's only one day that it's switched Fridays.
You've already lost that space anyways for parking, that you're going to lose it over on this side. It equals out.
Okay. I get what you're saying, I guess.
Because they only park on this side of the street for certain hours.
Right.
It's on this side of the street where they park a majority of the time.
Really, yeah.
And this is only for street cleaning.
That's true.
On Friday
Fridays
mornings.
Yeah, for 4 hours. Yeah.
You know, I would be happy to stipulate to work with the Department of Public Works to make sure that we don't lose any parking spaces and still keep the loading and drop-off areas. If we can't do it, then we wouldn't put in the curb cut. I don't have a problem with that. I didn't want the golf cart anyway. I mean, so I'm just trying to satisfy a problem.
Yeah.
But the one other thing, that just back on the housing for 2 seconds, we talked about these rooms and the size of these rooms. Right now, I rent 2 houses. So when I'm done, the people that I have staying in those 2 houses, and each of them in a bedroom that's smaller than these bedrooms, they're going to be excited to come over here, and that's where they're going. What that does is that frees up the 2 houses in the flats that I'm already renting. So you get housing back by this going in to satisfy the need that we actually have. My guys are only there Monday through Thursday. So on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, this is available to other businesses. So if there's an event going on, or the Island Company has something going on, or whomever needs a place to put their folks on the weekend, it's available for that workforce that's transient and only here for a couple of days. So that's what we were trying to satisfy with that.
It's so tough to be happy, which it doesn't take away from the fact that you're, housing people. It's just more of like an overall view of saying, hey, we have a tiny space, but we're going to give you just something a little bit bigger. You should be happy about that. That kills my soul. That means we have a bigger problem.
Right. Bigger than, different than this project or anything else.
Yeah. But getting back to the height thing, that just reminded me. So you said that changed with this, and you came down 5 feet. Did the story poles reflect that? Did the neighbors?
The second set, there was a first set of story poles that were put up. That's what Jody was responding to. So then what happens when I met with her, we went back and then we reduced it down and we rearranged the story poles. In the front, the elevator, I can't make it any shorter, and I have ADA requirements. It can't be it is what it is. The back half of that building is bathrooms for ADA compliance. So if you don't want to allow handicapped people to get on the roof.
I'm just asking because people have written and they're like, the story pole showed, they were at the same height as the cross of the church across the street. So I just wanted to know if that was after the 5 feet or before the 5 feet.
There was, when we put the story poles up, they were up for probably a month. And in the first 2 weeks, about half the time, they were at the full 33 feet. And the elevator commensurate to that. So then what happens when we drop the whole building down, everything dropped down 5 feet. Dropped down to the 28 feet, and then 10 feet above that is where the elevator roof is.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then can I just ask a question too on the parking, and this might be more for Jackie or Bob, but the turnaround in front of the St. Laurent, is that paved area specific to the St. Laurent, or is that area public street where they could drop there as well if they needed to?
That's public right away.
Thank you.
You broke it, Bob.
The new elevator. The new microphone. Everything's broken.
I did have questions, or just if you could clarify or guide me on what's the protocol for like hazardous materials when we do demolish, and how do we keep the residents safe from that air quality?
That's a good question. What happens, I hired because of the amount of asbestos and lead in the building, I hired an outside company that does only that. And with the hazmat, what they have to do is all of the drywall is full of lead and all the flooring has asbestos in it. So what would happen is the very first thing we do is we scaffold the outside of the building, then we screen it all. And it's partially controlled dust and visual. And so it's a safety factor. We'll keep the sidewalks open by putting a lid on top of the very lowest portion so they'll still be able to walk through. But what happens is when they take the building apart, they have to come in and they have to take every piece of drywall off and put it in a bag, and it has to go to a certain landfill in a covered dumpster, and it all has to be manifested that that's where it's going. I mean, it's a big deal. And then on the asbestos, it's a little bit more stringent than even that. But there's a negative air discharge that they have to maintain. So they have HEPA filters and filters inside the building and do all that stuff to include and keep all the dust and everything inside. Once that's done, then they can actually come in and dismantle the building, and they'll go from the top down. But it's a big production, so.
Have you worked with the company you're going to use or plan on using? Have you worked with them before?
I'm sorry?
Or have you worked before with the company that you plan on using?
I have a really hard time hearing with
Have you worked with the company before?
Yes, yeah, we have. Yeah, they're really good, very professional. It'll take about 6 to 7 weeks to take the building completely down to foundation.
So, just factually, so they know, if they send it back to the planning commission, and that it has to go through another process to consider these additional conditions, what does that do to your timing?
Kills me.
It kills you.
Kills me. And let me tell you why. And this happens in Hamilton every year. What happens is that in a hotel, you want to open up for your season. So let's just say I start now. It takes me 18 months to build a building. So I'm able to I won't make next year, but I will be able to have our soft opening, do this thing correctly, get it open ready for in April, and then be ready for June so that we function. If we don't do anything for another 2 or 3 or 4 months, I'm going to miss that season as well. That throws a big wrench into this. I'm not getting any younger. I don't know if I'm up to doing this 5 years from now, but it's an issue. It's an issue.
So I just want the council to understand what you're saying is they need to act tonight on this, because if not, it financially doesn't work out for you.
Everything you guys have said, I think it's working with staff in Public Works in regards to parking and turnarounds and all of that kind of stuff. We can fix that. If you have right of way in front of St. Laurent, I'm happy to participate, in making it safe and a comfortable turnaround there. We can work on that independently. I don't know that we're going to solve that without a few months of working on it, but we can do 2 things at one time. But I mean, I really need to get going with this. The family has been doing this with me for a long, long time. And one of the biggest issues with this is I don't own anything. So I'm going to go out and build, a $6, $7, $8 million structure. Banks won't loan on that. This is money out of our pocket to be able to do this. And I have a partner, but I'm more than equal to his share, but I need that extra money as well. And the way it's all set up, it works. And the longer things go on, it could potentially fall apart. So.
Okay, so Lisa, with some of the things that you were saying, your comments, does any of those really affect the decision we'd make today?
Well, so that's my question is if we are to say we would like to see a completed set of plans with them being fully completed to confirm that they match exactly what it is that we're saying here. We would like to see a review of the parking be added as a condition. If we're adding conditions, that doesn't work, right? It has to go back.
That's staff's position. Yes. If you add conditions, it does not You cannot.
And it
do
has
that.
to go to the planning commission first.
Correct.
So now you're talking 2 months.
Or it can come back to us and be potentially faster.
No, it has to go to the
You
planning
can,
commission.
you can have it under its staff's position that you can set the matter for hearing yourself. And then if you set the matter hearing for yourself, which we have to do a public hearing and all that notice, then you can put whatever conditions on it you want. You can change those conditions, but that's a delay. But you can have a hearing before yourself, a de novo, which means you throw out the decision of the planning commission.
It's all brand new.
And it all comes to you.
Well, I don't have a problem with making a decision this evening, knowing that he's been very willing to work with staff when we talk about the safety and we talk about the parking. I'm not very concerned about that, personally.
I'm not comfortable with the plan situation because what he presented at Planning Commission and what we see in our staff report this time, I don't see any bunk beds. I don't see any bunk beds in your plan that were updated 10/20. I don't see anything that looks like the workforce housing rooms that you had in the original plans that you submitted at the Planning Commission meeting.
The only workforce housing, the 4 rooms that are in the center, those are for the daily workers. And we have rollaways. We do things like that all the time right now. We have rollaways that go in the beds for them to have 2 people stay in 1 room. Right now, there's 1 bed showing in it, but doesn't preclude them from being 2 single beds.
Okay, but still, I just,
But I'm not- that's
it
not
doesn't
gonna-
feel complete to me, and I'm not comfortable with that, is all that I'm saying. And also, I would really like to have that rooftop defined, and I would like to have the rooftop be like, the St. Laurent has that, where people go up there for wine and
The
stuff like
Avalon
that.
or
The
the
Avalon has that, you know? And so it's not, I don't want a prep kitchen, and I don't want poo-poos and that kind of vending machine, go ahead, but, you know, I don't want, you know what I mean? It's like, if people want to go up there and bring their own food and cook their own food, that would be great. But if you have somebody staffing it, like it says in the condition of from the Planning Commission, that someone has to be there all the time, so that sounds like somebody's got to be preparing food and encouraging people up there. And
Mary, I'm happy to stipulate to it, don't call it a kitchen. I don't know where that ever came from.
right, but so how do
Don't
we
call it a
do that
kitchen.
here?
It's not intended to be a kitchen. If you're going to have a wedding there, you're going to have a caterer come in. He has to set up somewhere.
I think
And he
that's
has
what
to
my
have a
only
place to-
hesitation is that the original plan did not say that. It said it would be a kitchen. I get what you're trying to do.
Right.
And I get the requirements because it's a newer building also require that you have restrooms up top and you have all of that access level of space. So that's not the issue for me, but it's just in having the plans and what is stated in the plans and approval matching what the actual intent is. So how do we do that without having to make you jump through extra hoops
Right.
to do that?
Well, it's staff's position. I mean, I'm saying this staff because I'm acting as,
Your staff happy tonight.
I'm staff tonight. Okay,
Yeah.
my staff hat.
Yeah.
We can set a hearing and you can hear all these things, or you can grant it as conditioned by the Planning Commission, knowing that if there's a drop of alcohol, he has to come and have another hearing before the Planning Commission, and they can condition it. So it sounds like the easiest thing to do, if we set it for a hearing in 2 weeks, you can add all these conditions and tell him that's part of the thing. He's got to bring plans that are more
Right, because the thing is, if it's a wedding reception like he's saying, and it'd be catered in, then he doesn't have to have a liquor license because the caterer would have the license. You know, so we wouldn't have to, but he'd have to have the special event permit,
Right.
duh, and
It's just
all
the
of
lack
that.
of, it's
but-
just the lack of completed plans and clarifying those language parts that are troublesome to me.
Me too.
I think the fastest way would be if it were to come back to us instead of having to wait for planning to do that. And then we could say, great, everything matches what it's supposed to be, then this feels way more comfortable to me than sets of plans that don't match anything that's actually been completed and said.
And I'd also like to commend you on your architectural design. I mean, you kept the history and the look of the town, in mind, which I appreciate. And as I said, if we can only just have Mediterranean blue.
Lisa, one other question, or one other comment. The one person being there all of the time, when anybody's up there, it's because I want it monitored.
Right,
It's
to
not
have a noise
intended to be a
control.
cook.
Yeah.
And I have a manager full-time downstairs.
Yeah.
So there are people on the premises. Right now, you have other buildings that are there. They're not manned at all. It goes on late at night. They make a whole racket and ruckus going on. I have people staying downstairs. I have to keep it quiet.
Right.
The intention of that person being there, whether it be serving orange juice and coffee in the morning for somebody to come up and sit up there, they'll be at that bar area.
Yeah.
And the same thing in the evenings to get a glass of wine. I don't want people to have to go up and open up their own bottles, and that's a mess. You don't want to do that. So
No,
it would be a
I get the
bartender type
intention of
person.
it. I think it's good. I don't think that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
I get what you're trying to do there.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
I do too. It's just that after reading all of this material, it was like back and forth and back and forth, this and that. And it's,
Did you change your answer?
No, I haven't changed my answer. What I'm
Come
trying
on.
to do is provide staff's view of a solution as quickly as possible, because if it goes
Yes.
back to the planning commission,
Right, or to us.
no, I'm going to say, if it goes back to the planning commission makes a determination, someone can appeal that back to the city council.
Again.
We're looking at
Additional
months. If the action would be, if you direct staff, and the motion is to set a de novo hearing
Yes.
before the council, we will go through this and set it as quickly as possible, because we're going to have to notice it and stuff like that. It's probably 2 weeks from now, probably at the count, or we could have a special council meeting for it. And so that would delay you 2 to 3 weeks, but you'd have it before the council with no right to appeal.
But how long does it get him to create more plans, the completed plans that they
He's
want?
got until that.
You would-
Yeah, I'll have it ready for you Monday.
Yeah.
Oh, you can do,
Yeah.
okay.
So we can set it
I think that would be what I
like-
would,
as
yeah.
the law allows. We just have to look at what kind of public notice we have to give, who you have to notice, and we can do that.
I'm sorry,
we-
Mike, how long until you get completed plans submitted?
By the end of next week. And I can get them back there, have a chance for staff to review them.
We have a council meeting on the 5th. Is that enough time to notice, or how much ahead of time do you have to notice?
I think it's 10 days.
Okay.
But I've got to see when the newspaper publishes on
Fridays.
Friday. If we can get it in tomorrow?
It'd be Wednesday morning.
Okay.
Can you notice it before he provides you the plans on Monday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hang on, Friday.
The first?
Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, that's 10 days. Yeah.
The 4th? I think I'd be more comfortable
Back
with
on
that.
election day, Mike.
Keep it brief.
Well, okay.
If everything's
but-
lined up and matching what it's supposed to
Oh,
be.
yeah, okay, so is there a motion?
That is my
I
motion.
have just a comment before you take
Sure.
the motion. So I'd like specifically what you want, so I bring you back what you're looking
know.
for.
Yeah.
So one is the layout of the housing and how they're dining,
Yep.
okay?
Completed
The
set of
rooftop,
plans
The whole
and the
discussion of
rooftop.
the rooftop.
Yep.
The rooftop
The
deck.
complete set of
And
plans
so
for the whole?
confirming that the rooftop is in use for the hotel specifically, not to the general public.
You don't need a
right,
whole
just
set of plans.
define it.
The plans for, I want a completed set of plans of what
Not a
matches.
problem, I understand.
Okay,
Sure.
okay.
And then
Some
the
of
other
that
one was
might
the parking,
be all
right?
right already.
What's that?
The other one was the parking. So if we have a
Right.
curb cut and we lose a parking space, then you would I have to show where you're not losing one.
Correct. So looking at what that option could be, either being, I think possibly, my concern is losing parking. Michael's brought up maybe it's not actually losing parking, but I still would like to see that possibility without losing the parking spot if possible.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to make sure that we all are on the same page. So
Yep.
banked parking, is that an option? I mean, are you saying to show it in the back area?
I'd either want to see it with plans. If we're going to have a curb cut, then show the curb cut. Or if you're not going to need to require the curb cut to be included for off-street parking for one vehicle and allow them to park on the street, then would that be suitable and not showing the curb cut then?
Okay. And then I think we need a clarification on the level and detail of what plans you're talking about. I mean, I think I don't know that just saying plans is a definition of what.
So I'm looking at what the general plans are that we usually receive for approval of projects like this, which normally includes floor by floor, and then it also includes vertical and horizontal plans for everything, height and everything. It's so similar to what you've brought tonight, but having an actual set of completed plans with the current specifications in place.
Sure, so site plan, floor plan, elevations,
Yes.
and section if needed.
Yep.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious when you talk about the parking. I mean, is there some kind of consensus that we would prefer that he puts the parking in the back of the building so that we're not having to take away parking from the street? I mean, because why tell him to do it, and then we go, oh, no, but that's not what we want.
That's what I'm saying, is if he does the parking in the back of the house, it creates a curb cut in the back of the building, I mean.
Okay, and then-
So it removes a parking spot from the
But
street.
once again, there's only parking on that side of the street for a few hours every week.
Right.
So it's not like you're losing anything, because there's already.
Having lived on that street and trying to find
I
parking
lived
on
at the
Friday
top of the-
between 8 and 12, you
I
know how
lived
hard
at
that
the top
is.
of that street.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I
I lived
understand.
there for years, too.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I would prefer not to lose parking spaces if we can help it.
I just don't see, it's a wash in
It is,
in
it
parking.
is. Yeah, 'cause now you're screwing
You've
with
got
weekend.
you've got a space that's not used for parking, and everybody moves over, so that space could still be there with a curb cut, because you've got the curb cut over here. And you
can't-
only park over there.
It's not parking at all on that side of the street is what I'm saying, when the curb cut is there. You can't park in front of the curb cut.
I know. But you're taking a curb cut here that's there all the time.
Right.
Where nobody can park, and you're just moving it over here, that it's there. It's a negative space here, it just becomes a negative space here.
If there's a motion to bring this, to set this for a de novo hearing, we'll address all those parking options when we come back into.
Okay, but again, so he comes up with an option, and then we go, well, we don't like that one. So now has to go back to the drawing board because
it's
whoops.
de novo, I think we can put if we need to choose one or
De
the
novo
other,
means
we can, it's all new.
We're gonna do it, yeah.
We will do
You can
it.
put conditions on, that's what.
So we can choose at that point which one we do.
Without him making to come back for another
Correct.
drawing to show the other
Exactly.
curve.
Correct.
You just gotta get
Yep.
3 votes at that date.
Okay, all
The
right.
curb cuts could be used for unloading as well, right? Unloading
You know,
guests?
in the back of the building, yes,
And I'll
instead of
just-
parking on the street.
I'll just add to your discussion that parking requirements for this zone are essentially as determined by Planning Commission, or in this case, it would be use. So you do have flexibility under the code to consider appropriate options.
Okay, well, there's been a motion and a second to.
Not yet, but I'll move to have a hearing de novo
Well, like I
in
was
front of the
hearing
city
one and
council.
two.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mayor Marshall, could
Do you need more
could
addition
we
than that for
officially
the
close
motion?
public
And
comment?
Oh, yeah.
the public hearing is closed, thank you, okay.
Do you need anything more than a motion to say we'll have it de novo?
No.
Okay, then I so moved.
I didn't hear what you said.
So to have it come
November
back
5th.
to the city council on November 5th for the new.
November 5th.
De novo, new in front of us to review.
Okay.
So we
What
need a
was the
second
date
for
of the
that,
hearing?
November 5th.
November 5th, back here.
is the goal, yep.
Thank you. But to get all the plans as quickly as possible so that they can be included in the package that goes to the council for review.
I promise.
Thank you.
So I'll second that.
Okay, but moving seconded, call for the vote.
All ayes.
Thank you.
Guys,
Okay, item number 7.
Okay, general business, item number 7, Coyote Joe's outdoor patio lease agreement. At this time, we're asking council to authorize the assignment of the lease for the city-owned real property at 113 Catalina Avenue from Sebring Inc., DBA Coyote Joe's Restaurant, to Coyote Joe's Bar and Restaurant LLC.
Good evening, City Council. Devin Hart, Management Analyst. We're asking authority to sign the lease for the city-owned property at 113 Catalina Avenue from Sebring Inc., doing business as Coyote Joe's Restaurant, to Coyote Joe's Bar and Restaurant LLC. The lease's transfer is being requested, was requested by Ron Bevins, representing Sebring Inc.
to assign the remaining term of his lease, which is slated to, the initial term, which is slated to expire on December 31st, 2025, which has one additional 5-year renewal term, to Martin Leyva, doing business as Coyote Joe's Bar and Restaurant LLC. We confirmed with the new lessee that he has no intention to change the stated use of the space. It's approximately 418 square feet. It provides the outdoor dining of the physical restaurant, Coyote Joe's, which is owned by Santa Catalina Island Company. We are asking council to authorize the assignment of this lease on the condition that the sale is finalized and confirmation that the Island Company has approved the lease assignment. The potential new lessees are in the audience if you guys have any other questions.
Thank you. So if you, Martin, if you'd like to step up to the plate. Hi there.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. So, and maybe this question isn't so much for you, I'm assuming you're going to be open 12 months a year.
Yes.
Okay, so why would we just, I think some of ours are 9 months because it's on the pier and it's rains and it's nasty weather, but they're in a covered area, so why would we restrict it to 9?
It's just standard language in our lease agreement. We're not restricting them to only be open 9 months a year. That's the minimum requirement, is that they're open 9 months a year.
I understand, yeah. Because I'm sure your lease is 12 months a year. Yes, okay. Would you have any questions or comments, or would you like to make a statement?
No, we're just, we're happy to keep the same regulations, and, we're excited to, keep the restaurant open.
Okay, council?
No questions from me.
I'll make a motion. Authorize assignment of the lease maintaining all of the existing lease terms on the following conditions. The sale of the business is finalized, and confirmation of the Catalina Island Company's approval of the assignment.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Call for the vote.
All ayes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All righty. We'll see you there.
Item number 8, Cabrillo Mall Rehabilitation Phase 2, Pre-Construction Stage 0. Bob Greenlaw.
Good evening again, Bob Greenlaw.
Good evening.
We're finally making progress here on the mole here. So this item has a lot jam-packed into it. So we're asking you to do a lot of things here. Authorize the implementation of stage 0 of the project, and I'll describe that further. It's going to be a 4-step process. We're also making an affirmative finding the city has made its best effort to relocate the tenants. So we'll be dealing with that with the leases and some of the administrative stuff on that. And we also want to delegate the authority of the city manager to negotiate and execute reasonable rent agreements there. So all of this within one agenda item. To help get our way through that, let me just step back here for a minute. Okay, just a little background. Budgeted at $20 million, the project will replace and reconfigure the existing building. So that's known as Phase 2 here. And so to help get through that, let me describe a few things here. So we have a few different pieces. We are working on Phase 2. Phase 1 was our wharf project for all those that haven't been around, or just to bring us back into reality there. We estimate that at this time there'll be 10 stages in construction. A stage is an identified construction setup to accomplish a task, okay? And so we're at stage 0 of that. And stage 0 is the pre-terminal construction activities, which has 4 steps in procurement. So phase, stage, and steps. So step 1 is the installation of the grates at the old steamer ramps along the wharf there. And right now those are just cutouts along there. And what we've proposed is to permanently install grates there. That's going to help us in the construction project because that'll allow a 20-foot access around our construction site. And then when the fencing comes down, that will be permanently an access way, so there'll be a flat surface where those notch out. So it makes that whole edge more usable. And I have a picture of that. So those notch outs, where those yellow spaces are there. Okay, and step 2 of our procurement is the installation of the utility systems and other temporary infrastructure. So, yeah, there's new utilities, feeds that need to be brought into the mole. Right now it's fed back to Lover's Cove, and we just redid that with SCE probably a year ago. But we're upgrading the facilities to be all new utilities. And back in the day when the mole was built, they actually brought all of SCE's facilities, their ownership, into the building. So we're bringing that back out to the street, all the meters and all that, and then everything from that point in the street will now be the city's responsibility. That's the way it's done now. SCE wouldn't bring it all the way back into there. So it makes good sense, but it also, we get to upgrade those facilities to renew them because everything is old, outdated, lacking capacity, especially for electrical. One of the things that we did when we went for the additional $2 million that was an earmark was that we were saying that we were preparing for electric vehicles, and those vehicles could be boats, those could be cars, whatever it needs to be charging. But like right now, we're getting a harbor boat that needs to be charged, and it could be located in that vicinity there. We don't know what the outcome of ferries being able to get an opportunistic charge because they don't stay here for a half an hour, but so we're preparing for that conduit size. We're not putting the conductors in, but we're preparing for all of that, and so that's why this upgrade, the upgrade's going to be along from where the trailhead building is and where those utility boxes were put in, and all along the frontage of the curb that we're going to put our temporary facilities, and they'll be landed right where that one tree is at the entrance as you pull in to go into the mole. Okay, and that's where our utility installation will be terminated. And let's see, so that will support this temporary infrastructure that we have here. It'll be along this frontage. Okay, and it'll also supply all of these temporary facilities. Okay. So, and this is the other part of step 2. So don't let me forget that. That's where the other temporary infrastructure. So you see where the existing landscaping is, that's that gray area. That's going to be removed, and it'll be replaced when we finish the mall off. But that's going to be a temporary deck structure, and then we're going to have containers there that would be the temporary facilities like the offices, like the ticket offices and the restrooms. They'll be brought in. That's the blue areas there. And then what we've noted in the red areas, those are emergency areas for access, and they're existing, they already exist. So whenever we need to serve the chief coming in with all his equipment, that's where they access it now for cruise ships or the mole, and those are still going to exist. And then you also see there is an existing access where the stairway is, and there's going to be, instead of allowing a free flow for anybody to use that access, that's going to have a gate across it there. So if somebody needs to get in or out of here, they'll be going along that temporary walkway, which will tie into that existing sidewalk. And let me show you a cross-section of what that would look like, okay? So you can see to the left is where that seat wall is, the brick seat wall along floats 4 and 5. Okay, in this area right there, okay? And then we build this deck elevated over the existing planter. Pretty clever, huh? And then we extend that deck over the existing sidewalk. So now we have this big flat surface for queuing, okay? And then what the big box there, that's the container or the bathrooms, okay? And then there's a K-rail outside just so we don't have somebody hitting the trailers, as they're coming around. Okay? And step 3, we need to purchase the long lead items, okay? And so that's the utility systems. So part of what happened since COVID, there's been some long lead items in some of the utility boxes, okay? So the switch gear, those are the big cabinets and all that. So sometimes those take about a year now, okay? Not a problem for our project because we're going to be in temporary power. But this is the time to order it, and the city will order that and have that ready to go. So when our design build contractor comes in, there it is. We put all the underground in. Now the boxes are ready to install. Okay? And then after we receive all these quotes, we're coming back to you for all these procurements. Okay? So we're asking for authorization to go out for these procurements. Okay? And then so in the fourth step, the procurement of temporary facilities, so that's again all the stuff in the blue box is there, and to get all those. And so that current plan calls for 6 2-stall private restroom units, 1 ADA restroom, 1 40-foot office container, 2 20-foot office containers, and 1 10-foot office container. And don't take this as what it'll look like. This is a sample of a vendor, okay? It will not have grates on the windows. It will be where you step up. It looks like a ticket booth. The doors can come in from the sides, and we anticipate something like, say, Catalina Express. They would have a little office space for a supervisor, and then they would have a bunch of windows there, just like you go there up there now, and you'd be on top of that deck, and you'd be able to go. And then we're also installing posts right at the edge of where that seat wall is, and that's going to have sailcloth that would go from those posts on a cable so that we can move it around and go down to these containers, and so you'd have shade over this area and protection for rainfall also. But at the same time, we can put that sailcloth back over to the old pergolas too, so that we can have that in the interim when it's available for the floats 4 and 5 for the cruise, because the cruise ships have asked for that too. These are what a sample of the restrooms look like. They're individual stalls, so it's unisex. We don't need to have, so that helps us save on the amount of restrooms we have. This is what they look like inside. They're actually, we buy these just like this, and then we'd set them up. Okay? And there's a sample of the ADA, but also we can put in the changing station there. So it's more kind of like a combo ADA family, you know, so you could take care of your child. Okay, and that's what they look like. Okay, so the construction impacts the commercial operation of the mole. Currently there's 11 lessees at the Cabrillo Mole. That whole list there. And we have current lease agreements that has this language in it. Mole renovation, lessor will use its best efforts to relocate lessees business during renovations of the mole if such renovations render the property unfit. And it goes on and on, our best effort, okay? And this is all within our current leases, okay? So we anticipated that. We had the foresight to anticipate this happening and that we could negotiate that. Okay, so relocating the lessees. We have a temporary facility space of only 720 square feet of space, okay? So it's limited, and so we've got to make highest and best use of that real estate that we have out there. We intend to have these temporary facilities for the duration till we open the building, you know, and that may be earlier than some of the other site improvements done, but until it's ready to open and occupy, this is where they'll be. We don't want to move them around once we make them comfortable and everybody's used to using that system. We want to keep that system in place. City staff prioritize essential services, passenger transport, restroom facilities, baggage handling, etc. Okay, so the baggage handling is going to be in the upward corner of where the seaplane ramp is, and there's going to be a container there and also an outdoor fenced yard, just like they have now, and then they would have a couple spaces for vehicle parking right there. So they're really don't change, they just get moved out there, but then they would have all their same facilities there. Additionally, staff considered if the operator had redundant locations with Avalon. So, okay, so it's whether, selecting who can fit in this limited real estate. And so then balancing the needs of the public and emergency services, the proposed temporary facility plan will relocate Catalina Express, Catalina Flyer, Eli's Island Deli, and Avalon Blue Line Luggage, okay? That's what you see going into those blue boxes. Okay?
So Blue Line baggage, will that include the lockers that are on the side of the
Yeah,
building?
we can find a place for the lockers too.
Okay.
And there'll be certain things that are like our own maintenance activities or a job shack, they're going to be in the contractors area. And if those things can be a little more mobile, like the lockers, and because even we're trying to keep the parking lot the same configuration for most of the project, but realize as we bring a crane in someday or whatever, things are going to change a little bit out there. So things that we can make mobile, we want to make mobile and adaptable, but we want to keep that same drop-off area as much as possible, just like once we relocate, everybody's used to a system, stay with that system. They get used to it. After about a month, it's just like old hat, right? You know what to do. 3 commercial businesses that will not be relocated have additional operational facilities in Avalon, okay? And we've...
But let me ask you a question, but do they want to come back once it's built, or we don't know?
So they got...
We've offered all of them the first right of refusal to have that opportunity. It's up to them. There will be space for them if they want to come back to the new facility.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And the only question I had on that was for Island Enterprises, that's their main bus loading location? Are they still loading buses there, or have you heard if they don't have a ticketing spot on site for the bus loading that they have, what are they doing?
We're working with them, and we might be bringing something to council shortly of a nearby location for them to do some of that work, but we're trying to find a space for that loading and unloading.
So, and then realize in the area that we're putting the temporary facilities, we're losing some of that temporary drop-off zone, that green parking. A lot of it was red, but so we're losing 110 feet or so of space, but at the very end, it's still there.
It's all back,
so if you want, you still need that. It may end up where we've lost, we still have 60 or so feet of that. So, it's a compromise, So we need the essential facility. Hopefully, we're telling people we're a walkable community. Please help our project and walk. Plus, we also have Coast,
Axes,
and please use Coast.
Okay.
Yep.
Good. Okay.
Okay, so this is what the layout of the project area in like stage 0. And so you can see, just as we move on from stage 0, I would say, so it's stage 1. And the red line is the approximate fencing area out there. And so this is rough. I mean, the design build team is really going to further define this, but this is how we came up with 10 stages. But we just wanted to share this diagram because it shows you, as I look easterly there, northeasterly, that 20-foot access area. And so that's why the reason that we have the grates there. So for our emergency services, for other deliveries, or even to facilitate the building of the mole, because even the freight services has said, you know what, we think that possibly a lot of this freight could come in directly to the wharf and not through the freight lines over there. And so they've been saying they have equipment to do that, and so that could make things even more competitive and allow construction access. So there's several reasons to keep that open. And you'll also notice at the very far tip there, and maybe we're a little far extended with the diagram here, and the yellow would be further back, but that's where a lot of the loading that we can get, maybe 500 passenger queuing could be there. So we're being, really digging into where queuing lines could be and working with our partners there to say, here's plan A, Here's Plan B, here's Plan C, different times of the years, different things happening, different boats coming in, so that we're ready to adapt, just like we did with the queuing, with the cruise ships, the queuing on the cruise ships, and so we got really good at that. Let's see what else. So you can see down in that blue box on the seaplane ramp, now that's where I was describing where the baggage services would be. You can see that the parking lot, the drop-off zone is open with this, where the fence would be. You can see where the temporary facilities are in location, and the bathrooms are the closest to the terminal right now. And then we've worked with the cross-channel carriers. And once that landscaping's taken down, they'll have a better view of all of the floats. And so they found that sufficient for location to be able to watch their activities. So, a few things that we're asking. The administrative procedure, we're requesting the city council delegates authority to the city manager to negotiate and execute reasonable rent agreements with the tenants that were relocated. And then staff will provide notice to non-relocated lessees of the first or refusal for facilities in the new building, which city manager already said. So we're just trying to make this, as to be as nimble as we can as we move through all these different pieces. And so that's why we're asking for the authority to delegate to the city manager. And stage 0 timeline. To minimize the impact of business and visitors during the summer, staff hope to complete the work outlined on stage 0 by April 2025. And so that gives, we're also working on the design build, okay? So the RFQ, the request for qualifications, or request for proposals. So we've got, we're developing all the aspects of that. So this is to give all of our partners there plenty of time once we put the facilities in that they can get ready to move. And we have a timeline here. So tenants will be relocated will be allowed to begin any necessary tenant improvements to ensure the continuity. So we're giving them time. That's what the point we're making here. Now, all bets are off of this being accurate all the way to the end, but here it is. We threw a dart on the wall here, and so, here we begin the solicitation of stage 0 in November. And then you can see by December, another really important piece there, begin the solicitation for the design build component. We have a good, solid team working on that. And right now, it's in front of Metro, getting their blessings so that we make sure that we check all the boxes for the federal procurement, because it has a lot of strings attached to it. And then we get the stage 0 procurement in January. You can see that we got the work completed, authorized the tenants to move in April, and then deadline submit proposals for design build in June. That's very exciting there. It's a huge project, and we have to have really a heavy contractor oriented team, because they're out here on the island to understand the logistics, understand building and the environment of, just like we described, getting things on a wharf, being out there in the ocean, having bad weather at times, and still be able to produce something, on budget, on time. And then the demolition of the Cabrillo Mall begins in December of 25, okay? Seems like a long time out, but it's going to really creep up on us as we go through these stages, because you're going to be involved in those stages as we go along.
As far as you're going to take us today, huh? Yeah, okay.
That was a lot.
I know. You were very smart to say, and then by phase 2 and phase 3, so by December 2026, it would all be done. No.
It's estimated to be an 18-month construction, okay? So, it's gonna be a little while.
From when demolition starts, you're saying 18 months?
Yes. Okay.
Good. You're not going anywhere. You're here for the duration.
Okay, so you have the list of things that are in front of you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess.
Okay, we heard the presentation, so
I'll move to authorize the implementation of Stage 0 of the Cabrillo Mall Rehabilitation Project, including approval of the Cabrillo Mall Temporary Facility Plan, four-step procurement process, administrative procedure for existing tenants of the Cabrillo Mall, and approve of the site plan, and make the affirmative finding that the city has made its best effort to relocate the tenants at the Cabrillo Mall and suitable facilities for the Catalina Island Company's ticket booth, Island Enterprises ticket booth and storage area, Catalina ATM Inc., and fish feeder businesses cannot be accommodated. And 4, delegate authority to the city manager to negotiate and execute reasonable rent agreements with tenants that will be relocated to temporary facilities during construction, including the Avalon Blue Line Baggage, Catalina Express, Catalina Passenger Service Newport Flyer, and Ellie's Island Deli.
I'll second.
no further comments? Call for the vote.
All ayes.
It's very exciting.
Thank you. Well, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, I know.
Item
He's
number
not-
9.
He's not done.
He's not done yet.
I know,
right.
item
From
number 9.
one project to the next, item 9, five-corner pedestrian improvement project and contractor.
Okay, so another very exciting project. We've been working on this for years, okay? I think it was going before I got here, and I've been here over 7 years, okay?
Wow.
A lot of what happened, though, was COVID, and COVID really slowed things down. And then, as the project expanded, especially as we got utilities involved, it caused the prices to go way up. And then inflation added on top of that. But so, in all that long-winded explanation there, we're at where we're at right now. We have a good proposal for us that you've already given us, given the city manager authority to negotiate. We have been working with Jordahl Construction to work on different reductions, because we got a bid that was at 6.7 million, and we anticipated that we would be somewhere around 5.2, 5.3, okay, even with the additional funds. So the nuances of this bid as it came in, as far as the roadway and the ATP portion of the project, those things came in solid what we estimated, okay? They weren't too out of whack. Those were items that Jordahl Construction was going to perform himself. Then for the electrical, gas, and water utilities, those are all going to be subcontractors. And so they're off island. They require housing. They're pretty detailed activities, tasks that they're doing. So, all those things get bumped up, and so those are the things that we're kind of driving, as far as prices from what we looked, that were way out of whack from what our estimates we had put together. So what we did is we reduced some items down. We took some of the things that we had, during the bid process, we realized that some of our pavers and everything that were the niceties out in the intersection, that we should have provided an alternative for decision-making. And so we actually are going to there's an alternative that was bid on that would pave the intersection instead of providing pavers out there. So it takes some of the nice look away, but it also reduced the price down by about $85,000, okay? And we're looking for anything to reduce this down.
Didn't I just send you something about some money that's available and that was $150,000 or something? So maybe, oh, did you see that as well? I mean, is that a possibility, something we can go for, to maybe put the beauty back into the project? Oh, hell.
Always.
Tell them about our million visitors.
So one of the interesting things that we're asking for tonight is remember, we've got 3.2 million hanging out there that we need to award. Okay?
Right.
So we need to move to award. We've worked hard to get the grant funds that we have. We've developed a scope of project that we think is buildable. And we have the ability, because the unique thing, even the way it bid, that we have the ability to negotiate. And so right now that we've done that to a lot of aspects of it, and if the community wants that put back in, we need to find a way to get that done by taking something else out.
Exactly.
So
Okay.
we've taken that, and then there was some items that were a development component that were the pad for the workforce housing and the parking lot there.
Yeah.
We have set those aside for right now, just until we know more, okay?
Yeah.
And so when we award this, what we're actually going to do is enter into a contract with award, but then there would be some additive items that we could delegate, what staff has recommended, delegate to the city manager so he's nimble,
Yes.
that if those things have availability to award, have an opportunity, that we're able to react to it real quickly, okay? It's kind of
Yeah.
like, let's make a deal time. And that's, so that's what we're doing. So the same thing with the utilities, because
Okay.
the utilities, a lot of it was driven by the development, but a lot of it was also driven by designer selection of where to put in storm drain. And it seems really good at the start until you get the final price of it, and then you go,
Right.
I like it over 5 feet more there, and it doesn't impact the utilities at that point, okay? And that was not a bad choice. It was just when you're lining everything out and everything's moving around, it was a real good choice at the time. But when we have a price now, sometimes you look at it a little bit differently. And so we're working with our partners on the utilities right now to refine those things. We're working feverishly at this point. But we also can put in our construction contract that those items can be added back in, okay? So that's what we're trying to do, is get to that award so that we can award a contract to Jordan, so that we can tell the California Transportation Commission that we have awarded the project, and then we can work within our procurement standards to still do the things we need to do. We're asking for some delegation to the city manager. The reason we're doing that is just because we want to be more nimble as we work through it. If there's whatever reporting you need of that or whatever you don't feel comfortable with, we're here to figure that out.
Any questions, comments?
The only comment I was going to make was just if for part of the workforce housing part of the project, including the pad and parking, if we wanted to look at funds possibly from the COG, from the Housing Trust, that might be a location where the money makes sense for the scope of the project. And then 2, if I could just ask that city staff reach out to our state and county legislators to see if they have any funding in terms of art funding for part of the project. And then 3, if we can just talk to tree people regarding replacement for trees and foliage once everything is back in.
And we do have a landscape plan, and we are anticipating using native species as much, and we'll work with Conservancy on that and with what they have as far as stock. But we have a landscape architect, on call in our team.
Okay, council?
I'll make a motion to authorize the city manager to execute a contract with George Alt Construction, Inc. for the completion of the Five Corners pedestrian improvement project for a base scope not to exceed the sum of $4,737,805. Authorize the city manager to amend the construction contract to approve construction line items once the scope of work to be proportionally reimbursed by third-party entities is finalized for not to exceed an amount equal to a reimbursement agreement amount. Authorize the city manager at his discretion to amend the construction contract to approve additive items for a not-to-exceed sum of $350,000 for development items associated with a future workforce housing project. And the reason I wanted to make the motion is that this started in 2008 was when I was first on the council, and for us to take 16 years to get here.
Oh, okay. Okay, Michael.
And I will gladly second.
Okay. First and a second call for the vote. Okay, we want to tackle this tonight. Let's go.
I thought the same thing. I checked.
Okay. Are we all yeses?
Yes, it was all ayes.
Okay.
Do you mind if we take like a 5-minute break for restrooms real quick?
How about
Or
it? Not till
10 minutes?
next November.
I mean, with the way that's going, we'll see what happens.
Okay.
But is that okay if
Yeah,
we do that?
please, please.
So, yeah.
Oh. All right, and we are back from our break, and item number 10.
Item number 10 is a discussion of options for the city council to consider tenant protections and rent controls. So what I have done is I have we've had a study session on this about 9 months ago, and so I've attached those materials to the staff report. And then I've also attached some examples of what other cities have done, and also a summary of state law. So I'll go through these very, very quickly, and then we can have that discussion. This is a policy issue for the council, so it's basically up to the council to determine what kind of policy you would like to do, and we'll take whatever action or recommendation and go back and develop something if there is a decision or a direction. I will note, though, that Proposition 33, which is on the ballot in 2 weeks, does address some of what we're going to be talking about. In particular, under state law right now, state law provides that there's a maximum amount of rent control that can be enacted in the state, and it is 5% plus whatever the CPI is. So it's but a maximum of 10. So the highest any landlord can raise your rent in California is 10%. That provision does not apply to apartments that were constructed after 1995, February 1st, 1995. So if any new construction doesn't apply. I don't think we have that many units in Avalon that have been constructed by that. That provision also provides that rent control does not apply to single-family homes. Proposition 33, if enacted, would eliminate that February 1st date. So if there are any new units, you could impose rent control on that. And it also eliminates the prohibition of rent control for single-family residences. So the laws may change, but certain provisions in most cities have enacted that have looked at rent control, and about 1/3 have enacted rent control that puts limits lower than the state max of 10. And so I'm just going to briefly go through what state law provides. State law, and this is not subject to Prop 33, provides that there can be no fault termination. In other words, if the owner wants to move back into the unit, the owner can, or the owner's family can. You can withdraw it and you can evict a tenant. Or if you're going to be substantially remodeling the building, and those protections remain even if Prop 33 passes. So then what have some cities done with rent control? As I put, Culver City is a 5% cap. County of LA and unincorporated areas, 4% cap. Santa Ana, one of our cities, 3% cap. West Hollywood also has a rent control that's very complex. It was voter enacted, it's 3%. Ojai's 4%, Sacramento is 5% plus CPI, and Pasadena uses this complex formula. So that's some of the kind of rent controls that they put in. Other cities also say that if you evict someone through a no-fault eviction process, in other words, where you're going to be removing the unit because your family's moving in or you're going to substantially remodel, you can require the landlord to provide rent. In some cities, it's up to 3 months to give that tenant the first and last month's rent and some moving cost. In addition to that, some cities require that there be some educational materials given to tenants who face relocation or eviction. And then what is required, though, under the due process law is that if you have rent control, you have to have some kind of appeal procedure for landlords to be able to come to the city and say, I understand you have this rent control, but if you enact this, I will be deprived of my ability to make a living. It will not allow me to make repairs. And so they then come to the city and they present an economic case as to why their rent should be raised higher than the city's rent control. And so what you see in other cities is what's called the Rent Stabilization Board. It's a separate, in most instances, it's a separate body from the city council. You could volunteer to do that yourself. Most city councils don't, but it's an appointed body. And what happens is a landlord comes before that body with a rent increase and there presents evidence as to why they should be exempted from the ordinance. So that's very, very quick view of rent control, the options that are out there. There's some other things that some cities have done that are under legal challenge, like for instance, requiring that you rent your unit out, that you cannot have it be vacant. Oakland and Berkeley have done that. They've been sued, so we're not looking at that right now. You want to see how that comes out in the wash. And again, this is an item for discussion. What I would suggest is you have that discussion. Obviously, we'll see how the election comes. We would not come back with an ordinance yet. We come back with some concepts and how it would work. And then if we get agreement on that, at that point, we would draft an ordinance. So that is a very quick overview, but I know you've all read this reports and we've already had this presentation a couple months ago.
I find the Long Beach requires relocation benefits to the amount of $3,300 with if they're needing to make repairs to a unit and have to move them out. That's interesting because I don't think we have any place to move them out to. But and then also paying a moving expense for people. Those are just kinds of interesting things.
When I read that, I was like, we need to have some relocation fees around here. So like if somebody's been living there for a billion years and the owner decides to sell the house, that's
well, if
That's
the owner
different,
sells
isn't
the
it?
house, only if, so again, let's assume this apartment, an owner sells an apartment. They cannot evict those tenants. Only if the new owner wants to live in those units, then you can evict the tenants.
all right, because we're not talking about single family yet because
Not yet, because you're not allowed to. You may be able to
right.
after November 5th.
But still, if it's just for discussion right now, I'd like to throw that on the table. I think that's a great idea, and it might help people in the long run when people are like, oh, so I have to pay for them to move? Anyway.
Well, and or it will help people if they can't find a place to live, relocate even
Right.
off island.
Right.
If they would have to, unfortunately. Yeah.
For Long Beach, is that a fund that is paid directly by the landlord, or is that something that the landlords pay into with the city to
I think
administer?
it's the city makes the landlord pay.
Okay.
So, I mean, you could have a city fund that helps, but most cities require the landlord to do it since they're the ones that are getting the economic benefit of upgrading their unit or moving in. It's their choice. In other words, they're not being forced to do this choice. It is their choice. And so the burden is or the onus is on them to compensate the tenants.
So we should continue to discuss, but wait to see what happens at the election. Because to try to put something in effect now and then it would be all goofy.
Right, but get all of our ideas on the table, our wish list, as it were.
Right, exactly.
You could, again, we can have that discussion now, or re-review this, see what happens with Proposition 33, and then we can schedule a more in-depth study session later, maybe when we have a shorter agenda.
I think that's a better idea, yeah.
Or you could even have a separate study session for it.
Right.
Well, and it's interesting because people might be hearing this if they're still awake. It's not that late, but, and be calling us with ideas and things that they're considering as well. So good.
Well, just looking at a lot of these cities, I'd be down with 4%, period. You know, no CPI or whatever, but 4%. And what is this landlord, they have to pay, they have to do the registry. The County of Los Angeles has that, but, you know, they have the landlord registry and they have to register their apartments annually.
Right, we could, that's, again, that's part of, so that the city would have then a list of the landlords, and so when tenants complain about the violation of the city's rent control, we know who to go to enforce the ordinance.
Okay, and so.
We already know who they are.
So I leave one of these places, and then somebody else comes in. There's nothing that says they can't jack up, they can't really change the rent for the new tenant, though, right?
Correct. So if a tenant leaves,
right.
Well, Prop 33, I think, does put some limits on that, because right now it's once a tenant leaves, if let's just say they get a job off island and they move, you can under state law you can raise it, you can double it. Right. Some cities put limitations on the amount that you can raise that. And then what happens is, I think Santa Monica has that. But what happens is then you have, the tenants argue that if you can never raise rates above a certain amount, even when, landlords would argue, if you can't raise it even when tenants move out, they'll just never upgrade the units.
Right,
so
right.
That's what the Rent Stabilization Board is to come and say, I want to really make this place nicer. And here's the money and they have to present detailed budgets for it, and they have to present exactly what they're going to do, and then only if they have that documentation can they raise rent. And again, that's the city's determination if you want to make it's kind of like a variance from your rent control.
Well, I have a question for Matt. So we know every year what our sewer, salt water, and trash are going to be. We know those increases, right? Those percentages. And then Edison also has increases coming forward, I believe.
They publish all that, yeah.
So then my question is, in a normal household, what would that dollar be? So if all of our, for example, my utilities in the winter are $600 a month, okay? No. So, that's just Edison. So, and I know my sewer, salt, water, and trash are, because I'm a duplex, that's about $6,000 a year, okay? And if those go up again, what is an example of that number to say, 3% increase when it's costing the landlord 10% just to cover the cost of all the increases, I mean, I just wonder, to try to be fair to both sides, I'm curious what those numbers could be.
I mean, it would really depend on what the rent itself was, is the problem. So, if you're getting $4,000 a month for a place, the percentage increase, if we're increasing sewer fees by 5%, is going to be different if you're renting a place for $1,000 a month and we increase sewer fees by 5%.
No, but my base price is, my base cost of living is the same. All of my utilities and sewer, salt, water, and trash are the same. So I wonder what the average increase in a residence is for that. You know what I mean?
I mean, we do the rate assessment on a 5-year period. I guess I'm not sure.
I think what you're saying is this. Let's say that we have a rent control of, let's just say, 3%. And then the landlord experiences a sewer and saltwater increase of 7%.
And the other ones.
And then the other ones.
Yeah.
Okay? So then, if they only get a 3% or a 4% rent increase, they're paying that out of their own pocket.
If you're
Right.
assuming that that Edison is paid for by the landlord.
If it's not captured in the
Right, yeah.
And if the landlord was just breaking even on the rental to begin with, I mean, they're always making a profit. I mean, they're always higher than what their mortgage payment is.
Oh, I know, but I know. I was just wanting to see
If there's a
if
flat
there-
rate that we
just
could,
to-
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The challenge again is the number is going to change depending on what the rent is. So if we don't charge something different for a 3-bedroom house and a 1-bedroom house, your trash rate went up by 7% this year.
Right.
But that 7% increase is going to impact someone who's only getting $1,000 a month for their rental property differently than what it would impact someone who's getting $4,000 a month.
So that's maybe when they would come to this.
That's why they would come with the rent stabilization board and say, look at what my rates have actually gone up because of what I have to,
Yeah. Well, insurance, fire insurance.
Right, and when Edison raises the rates, they always spread it out over many years, so that it doesn't, so it's not like a
They
wham.
still kind of add everything.
Right, so
But I like that little thing we got, of the little rebate we got the other day from them, for those of us who pay our own utilities. It got my bill down. I don't know what that program
The
is.
climate rebate.
Yeah, so anyway, that was great. That was like $250.
I think West Hollywood's, I know we staff those, and I think it meets twice a month, and those meetings are substantially longer than council meetings because you have, and anyone who wants to raise rates has to, and then the hearings themselves are quite detailed because they have to present all that evidence.
Yeah.
And so it is a burden when you do this. I'm not, so probably you don't want to have appoint yourself.
No, I understand, yeah. Okay, so we're going to wait till after the election.
Steady.
And steady. Okay, is that it? Okay, meeting adjourned.